So what ends up happening is Wilson comes up to me and says, "You're not going to believe this. They just indicted my ex-wife, my brother, and they indicted me." And I went,
"You're kidding."
"No, Ron, say it ain't so." And I said, "Get the fuck out of here." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "For what?" He's like, for the Ponzi. I told you the Ponzi scheme. I said, "No, I found the Ponzi scheme." Yeah. He said, "They brought my wife in there and she denied it. The first day she called, she said, I don't know what you're talking about. She denied it. And the next morning she came back and she gave him $350,000 and So I'm walking around the prison compound and there was an old guy named Ron Wilson. Ron Wilson stole $57 million. There's articles that say he stole it's like $100 million. But really, the loss was $57 million, right? Because it's a Ponzi scheme. You know, they'll jack up how much he's supposed to have made and got back. But it ends up being $57 million. So, and most of that money was taken from like pension funds, retirees, churches, you know. And so he was an old con man, right? And this is going to sound horrible, but I liked Ron Wilson. You know, I liked him. He was super gruff, real an abrasive personality.
You don't say. In prison?
No, outside of prison. In prison, he was probably softer, but he was a harsh guy. But I did like him. So I don't want to sit here and say, "Oh, I didn't like the guy." I'm not going to lie. I liked him. That's Ron Wilson.
I see what you're saying.
City councilman too, by the way.
God, something about these Florida city council.
No, this was South Carolina. He was also the president of the Sons of the Confederacy.
Oh.
So
in prison now. That's not a good look for him. Depends where you are, I guess, right? Because they run in clans over there. No pun intended.
He's a nice guy. Anyway, he's not. Give old Ron.
Man.
So
20 years.
He got like 19 and a half years. It says 20. We got 19 and a half. So
sure, huge sentences.
He's out by now. He's out already. So what happens is this.
Amodeo got him out?
No.
Okay.
So what happens is I see him. We start talking. You know, we're two con men in prison. We shoot the shit. He kind of reminds me of my dad, right? I like him. He's a nice guy. We walk around. We're always hanging out, talking. He knows. Keep in mind, I come back. I got 7 years knocked off my sentence. Like, if you didn't know I was a snitch before, I just went back to federal prison, got 7 years knocked off my sentence, and showed back up in prison. It's everywhere.
Right. Hey guys, if you haven't already, please take a second and smash that subscribe button down below on the video. It is a huge help to getting our videos into the algorithm, which allows us to get more push and be able to get great guests like this to come on the show. So thank you to everyone who's taken the time to do that this year. We've done a lot better in the numbers in October and November with people hitting the button on the episodes. So let's keep that going into the end of the year. And also, if you haven't checked out Matt's previous episodes on the podcast, episode 96 and 111, they are hilarious. So after this one, if you want to check those out, the links to them are in the description below on the episode.
I'm talking to Wilson. Wilson has just gotten to prison, and Wilson, by the way, is cooperating in his case. He's cooperating against several of his of the financial advisors in his case. And he keeps telling me they're never going to reduce my sentence. And I'm like, why wouldn't they? He goes, because they think I hid Ponzi scheme, some of the Ponzi scheme money. And I'm like, well, they would have to prove that. Did you? And he goes, no. And I went, okay. Then
good enough for me.
I said, then you didn't. I said, they would have to prove that. They'd have to find the money, and then they could withhold that. And if not, I said, we'll have Amodeo file a motion. We'll get it for you, bro. You're going to be all right. We keep going around and going, he mentions it again. He mentioned it. This is for 3 months. He mentions it every week or two. Oh, I'm never going to get nothing. I'm like, you'll be fine. You've already done whatever, a year or two. They'll reduce it this much, boom, boom, boom. You'll be out of here in like 6 or 7, 5, 6 years, whatever. You'll be in a halfway house in a year. You'll be fine. You probably got 5 years left. That's what you're really looking at. And you're also kind of giving them hope, right? So we're walking around and he mentions it again one day. They're never going to give me that. And I go, keep saying that. He's, well, they think I hid Ponzi scheme money. And I'm like, you keep saying that. And I said, why do you keep saying that? And he goes, can I trust you? And I went, probably not. And he looked at me and he goes, I did put away some money. And I went, really? And he goes, yeah. I actually, and here's, this is how fucked up I am. My first thought was, and I said, really? I said, you said you didn't. He said, well, I know, but
Can I start
did.
my tape recorder real fast? Hold on.
He goes, yeah, I know, but I did. He said, I gave my wife $150,000 to hold. He said, the problem is that she now knows, she's found out that I was having an affair.
Ooh.
And my fear is she's just going to turn it in to make sure I don't get anything off my sentence. His wife was according to him, really, and I believe him, a very, very vicious woman. So, and I knew his life inside and out. So, and I knew about the woman he was having an affair with. She was one of the financial advisors that worked underneath him or with him. So
underneath, more likely.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. And so we're walking. He goes, I also gave my brother about 30 grand. I was like, all right. And so we're walking. And I said, still, they'd have to turn the money in. And they're not going to. He's, I think they will. I said, well, just hope that they won't. Hopefully they don't. And he was like, well, yeah, you're right. So I remember my first thought when he had said that, the 150, I thought, is that enough? Is that enough to get me a reduction? Because my thought was, they didn't want to give me a reduction the first time. They wanted 30 months off my sentence. I got 7 years. They're not going to give me anything ever again. This is it. I'm doing, like, I was resolved to, you're going to write your story. You're going to write your little true crime stories. You're going to publish some books. You're going to get a whole bunch of books out there, and that will be some residual income when you get out. And that's what you're going to do the rest of your life. And that's okay. That's a good life. But then he said this, and I thought, yeah, that's not enough. So I said, yeah, it's not enough. They're not going to do anything. And I go and I lay down. And I'm telling you, a month went by. And I was waiting. Keep in mind, I just got back a month or so later. A few months, my lawyer was supposed to send me my sentencing transcripts because I wanted to add some of the stuff at the back of of my memoir. I hadn't published it. I just had a manuscript. So I wanted my sentencing transcripts, and she hadn't sent it. So I called her one day. I said, hey, listen, by the way, here's what's going on. Or I need my sentencing transcripts. And she's like, oh, God, Matt, I'm so sorry. I was going to do that. Okay. She said, I'll do it. You got to write me a check. It's for this much. It's $100. Well, okay. I'll have somebody write you a check. And she goes, anything else going on? And I went, like what? And she goes, this is a woman who never wanted to talk to me. They don't want to spend. I don't know what her deal was that day. But she was like, anything else happening? I was like, no. She goes, nothing going on in there? You want to talk about it? And I went, no. I said, okay, you know what? Listen to this. This is weird. And I told her, there's a guy named Ron Wilson. And she goes, hold on, let me pull his name up. Who is it? She goes, ooh, this is a bad guy. This guy stole a lot of money. And she goes, and I was like, right. And I said, well, so here's what he told me. And I told her. And I said, but I don't think that's enough for them to do anything. And that's not good. They're just going to take the money. They're not going to indict these people, right? Like these are people that just are holding money. They're not going to, she goes, oh, you never know. She goes, let me look into it. I said, all right, hang up the phone. Probably a week later, I get a CO sees me one day, and he comes up and he goes, Cox. I'm like, yeah, what's up? He goes, you got to go to SIS at the move. Because, they have moves, controlled movements, right? They unlock the door. You can go for 5 or 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't think anything of it because I ordered so many Freedom of Information Acts. I was always going down to SIS because they were always catching a Freedom of Information Act.
He's looking at you weird.
He is, but they don't know what I'm going there. So right. They always think it's something, something nefarious.
Right.
They always think you're cooperating. You're telling them something. And so every time they go, you got to go down there. And I come back with a bunch of Freedom of Information Act that I'd ordered on you. And they didn't want to give it to me until I said, no, it's for a story. And they'd give it to me. And they're still not supposed to give it to me, but they would because they knew I was writing stories. So I go down there and I walk in. I knock on the door. I go, hey, man, they told me to come down here. And they're like, yeah. And this one cop I never talked to, total asshole. He's like, come in here, Cox. I'm walking. I'm like, now I'm worried. Sit down. I sit down. He goes, hold on a second. Dials a number. Here. We got to talk to this guy. And I'm thinking, what the is going on? And I grabbed the phone. Keep in mind, there's been a lot of stuff with the Freedom of Information Act. Like I've had times where they wouldn't give it to me, times where homicide detectives were calling them and asking who I was and what I was. So I didn't really know. As soon as I got it, and the guy goes, "This is Agent like Scott Griffin from the Secret Service, from the South Carolina Secret Service. I understand you know where Ron Wilson has hid Ponzi scheme." And I thought, ooh,
damn, yeah,
and
it's going to cost you.
And I said, "Nah, bro." I said, "I can't just be telling you. I just can't just tell you." I said, "I need something in writing." And I said, "And by the way, it's not a lot of money. It's not millions." And he goes, "Well, how much is it?" I said, "Look, I'm not going to tell you exactly, but I do know something. Maybe it'll help. But I want a letter from the U.S. attorney saying they will give me something if I get you money back." I said, "I don't even, no indictment, just money." And he goes, "Okay, well, let me look into it." He gives me his email address, and I put him on my core links, and I write him. And he actually, about a month later, I get a letter from an email from the U.S. attorney saying, if we recover, if there's indictments, arrests, or we recover a substantial amount of money, we will consider it substantial assistance. But that's the best I'm going to get. Like, it's like, you accept this and work with us, or go yourself and do your time. Like,
right.
What does it matter? So I start emailing back and forth with them, and they're writing me saying, "Ask Wilson this. Ask Wilson this." So we're walking around, and periodically I would ask him something, but it's not easy you can't just say, "Hey, did Jimmy ever?" You have to slowly, you mention it, and if he comes around, he comes around, and if not, then and they're always pushy. "Well, you need to find out this." I'm like, "Listen, bro.
Gotta play this smooth.
I gotta play this smooth, and I'm in prison as a snitch already." Like, believe it, I know it's a low, but people are getting stabbed. People are getting beat up. But people that those things are happening to typically have it coming. Like they ran up a $500 debt and then told the guy to go off and just didn't pay him. So that guy's got to do something to him.
Yep.
I'm not really bothering anybody.
How often did guys, like when they got stabbed and actually die in there?
No,
when you
never,
were there?
never.
Almost never.
No, they just stab them up a little bit. That's a phrase I heard.
Little pain.
Little bit.
Little pain.
That's a phrase.
Don't hit the liver.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. First time I heard someone got stabbed, I was
Make
like, someone died? And he was like, "Nah, he just stabbed him up a little bit." When someone says he stabbed him up a little bit,
yeah,
that's not normal.
Warm and red.
No, it's not normal.
So, so that's what. So basically, I'm walking around. I mention this. I mention that. I say this. I say this. And by the way, I keep telling the Secret Service. I keep throwing in stuff like, "Do you feel like this is substantially in furthering your investigation?" Absolutely, it's substantially furthering our investigation. I feel that. So I'm really doing. So I've got a bunch of emails. So finally, one day, and what happens is, by the way, I do let them know exactly what he told me. 150 and 300,000.
And they give you the
They
response in writing that says like this
is.
is.
I got an email that said, but once again, it's consider it. So we're going back and forth, and I keep thinking, well, just call them in. Like I also, they could have come in and said, "We know you have this much," and they could have said, "Go f yourself." Nothing they could do if they buried it in the backyard. So anyway, what happens is, this drags out like 6 months, and then one day, I get an email that says Ron Wilson's about to get a really, really bad message here. Like he's about to have a really bad day, Mr. Cox. Please, let us know as soon as you hear what happens. And I'm like, so Wilson one day, Cox, and I'm like, I'm on edge.
Oh yeah.
Not that I think like Wilson's not a big guy. Like
I was going to say, this isn't the scary guy.
This isn't. He's not
But
going to.
still, though, yeah, it's still like a little bit edgy.
Yeah, you
don't know what he's going to do or how he's going to respond
or who he's going to pay off.
And not just that. Even if he throws a fit, I could end up going to the shoe and getting shipped for my own protection. I don't want that. My mother comes to see me every 2 weeks. She's 80 some odd years old.
Yep.
No. So
your mom came to see you every 2 weeks?
Every 2 weeks for 13 years.
Wow.
She's a f***ing gangster. Was. So what ends up happening is Wilson comes up to me and says, "You're not going to believe this. They just indicted my ex-wife, my brother, and they indicted me." And I went,
"You're kidding."
"No, Ron. Say it ain't so.
And
No. And
Ron, I won't
embraced
be
him.
seeing you for as long as I thought.
I hugged him and said, let's cry it out. No. And I said, get the out of here. And he's like, yeah. I was like, for what? For what? And he's like, for the Ponzi. I told you the Ponzi scheme. I said, no. I found the Ponzi scheme. Yeah. He said, they brought my wife in there and she denied it. The first day she called, she said, I don't know what you're talking about. She denied it. And the next morning she came back and she gave him $350,000 in cash and gold and silver bullion. And I went, what? Keep in mind, his Ponzi scheme was based on silver. So he had like get nuggets and ingots and everything. So he really had money buried in gold and silver and buried. So she gave him all this stuff. And then my brother came in the next day and walked in and gave him $150,000. I said, bro, you said it was like 30,000. You said it was like, I know. He said it was more than what I said. I just didn't trust you. And I was like, that's insulting that you wouldn't trust me. So
I would never tell about 30,000.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, they've indicted me. My lawyer said they're going to be moving me. And I was like, okay, well, I'm sure it'll be okay.
We're going to miss you.
And you have to understand, look, there's different levels of cooperation. If I give Jim some information, hey, this guy Todd is selling drugs out of his house, but that's all I give him. And then he investigates and he ends up finding out and he does end up pulling him over one day, finds drugs on him, arrests him. Okay, I get something because it was really in passing. It wasn't a big deal, right? I didn't give you a ton of information. If I wear a wire on you, and I get information and I start pulling information and I work, which essentially I was doing emails, going out, getting the information, coming back, and I'm giving them information that they don't know and that they can independently verify. In fact, I'm also giving them information that they said,
spot on.
No, Mr. Cox, you're saying that there was 300,000 here. There wasn't. We would have known that. I said, absolutely not. So-and-so's mother got a settlement and she bought that condo with that money and sold it, and the money went into another account. And they come back, they'd be like, man, I don't know how we missed that, but we found out that's true. You're right. So now that's money you can go after, isn't it? You see what I'm saying? So it's like,
absolutely.
So they were like, you have no idea. Like this is great. So then the next level would be, what if somebody goes to trial and I testify in trial? That's the best.
As an eyewitness. Yeah, absolutely. And having them, if you can have someone in their own words explain what they did, that's the most powerful piece, right? So that's going to be, and even depends on the level of the investigator or the agent. You might give them something that you think is just nothing, but it's a missing piece. Right. And if there's a good, aggressive, competent investigator, they're going to run that out.
Right.
And I'm going to come back. If it was me, I'm coming back to you to give you the credit for that, because I understand we can independently corroborate based on what you told us, and there's no way that we would have got to that point without that cooperator. Right. But a lot of people don't look at it that way. A lot of people are lazy as shit, so they don't do anything about it. They just let it go. It can't be anything. He's a criminal. You know.
So the other thing is that also depends on how much they're going to ask the judge for a reduction, right? Well, I gave us some information. It panned out. Give him a little bit off, 25%. Oh, he did this. Give him 30%. Oh, you know what? Your Honor, it was amazing. He really did this and testified, and he put himself in real danger. Give him 50%. So Wilson says, man, I don't know what to do. What should I do? And I go, you should go to trial. Because I know they'll have to call me as a witness.
Oh,
exactly. So now you're covered.
Don't you put up with any Ron. You need to drag this out.
Matt's doing calculations.
Yeah. See if you can get it past the bow.
So
3-year mark.
Walking in the courtroom, wave.
Yeah.
Sorry, pal.
So anyway, what happens with Wilson is he says, yeah, I'm going to go back. I'm going to do this. So the next couple days later, they put him on the pack out, right? The transfer sheet. And he packs his bag out and he gets moved back to South Carolina. So he's back there a few months, 6 months, and he pleads guilty and he gets sentenced to 6 more months. He's already got 19 and a half years. So now it's 20 years.
Actually, not the worst outcome ever for him.
No. And then his wife gets it's like 100 hours of
Community
service, and like 6 months probation. And then his brother, because they got hit with obstruction of justice, and then his brother ends up getting like whatever it was, 6 months, 3 months probation, like nothing. Like I don't even think they're felons. Like I'm saying, like it's nothing. So okay, the problem with that is that's not a huge sentence, is it? Like how much? What's that going to do for me? They're not taking this super serious.
Chances are you've been here before. There's absolute chaos in the markets, whether it be oil or stocks, and just when you thought it was safe and interest rates were rising, new threats have come out of nowhere. Tensions are boiling from Asia to Europe. 2 wars are happening simultaneously with no end in sight, and an election year beckons in 2024. Adaptation is the key to safeguarding your wealth. Have you thought about hedging your portfolio with gold? You should. It's not speculation, but insurance. And right now you need some insurance. Noble Gold Investments have been protecting investors from disaster for years with precious metals. So if you're worried, it might be time to take a fresh look at gold and silver. Gold is a proven safe haven shield for your portfolio and a volatility balance against uncertainty. Noble Gold Investments is offering a free 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin along with its IRAs this month. If you open your Noble Gold Investments IRA or 401k rollover, you can claim your free coin today. To protect your wealth and retirement money, open up a gold IRA today by going to www.noblegoldinvestments.com/Julian Dorey or by calling 877-646-5347. Once again, that's noblegoldinvestments.com/Julian Dorey. Remember, crisis brews, portfolios waver, gold insulates. So secure yourself against the threats at Noble Gold Investments.
So, and this whole time, by the way, I've been telling one of the only persons I've been telling what's going on is Frank Amodeo. And he's like, document everything, So, so what happens is afterward, I wait and I wait and I wait about 6 months and we write a letter and say, hey, where's my reduction? No response. So Frank files another 2255. And the court comes back and we say, look, Mr. Cox was approached by the Secret Service. He was contacted. The U.S. attorney agreed that they would reduce his sentence. He helped with this. He helped that. We sent him like a list of emails. Like we traded over 100 emails with the Secret Service, blah, 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 all the way down the line. They said they give something. What's going on? And the U.S. attorney came back and said, we don't even know what you're talking about. We don't have any agreement with Mr. Cox. So we send the letter that they didn't think I had, by the way.
Why didn't they think you had that?
I don't know. Because it was a letter to the Secret Service agent.
So he didn't turn that. So he didn't turn that over then. Clearly.
What do you mean?
The Secret Service agent didn't allow them to be involved in that piece.
No, the Secret Service. I think the U.S. attorney. The U.S. attorney just didn't think the Secret Service agent had forwarded me the letter. It was a letter to him, saying we will reduce Mr. Cox's sentence. Okay. Blah blah blah. It wasn't to me.
Got it.
So he forwarded that to
me, and they probably just didn't think it was happening. And keep in mind too, this is also.
But that is so damn corrupt.
No,
I mean, but
I will not sit here and listen to you talk bad about the federal government. I won't do it.
But listen, how much money you want from me? This guy would get me.
Oh my God.
But seriously, that's a big time issue. I mean, I'm being as honest as I can be. I mean, that's
one thing
happen.
I do appreciate about post-career Jim. Like, you call it where you see it with, and not just with the FBI, but with all of them. Like, when they're in the right, they're in the right.
That's a fireable offense.
But when they're wrong, you ain't afraid to say it.
Prosecutorial immunity. They get
besides the fact, I mean, it is a significant charge because it's a conspiracy to commit obstruction. So both on the guy himself and the wife and the brother, that's a conspiracy. I mean, that's a significant charge.
I mean, I feel like it is.
I mean, they're a felon. I mean, they're and they are convicted felons.
Yeah.
So
they are
absolutely. Yeah.
But they didn't they got like almost no.
But I mean,
time.
the punishment doesn't.
I mean,
it's clear that the obstruction, the conspiracy to commit obstruction, is significant. It's a significant charge. I'm just disgusted with the whole thing, but that's just me.
Well, my disgust was a little bit
I'm
a little
thinking
bit
it's
more
probably
than
a
yours
little
because
bit more.
I was
Yeah, you're the one doing the time.
so.
But I'm as disgusted as I can be.
Yeah, without having
Not nearly
serve,
to the level of disgust that
some
you
prison
were at.
time. So
Well, no, I was married twice. I definitely served time.
I always say that about my ex-wife's new husband. Like he's doing some serious.
Dude, I saw something.
My marriage with my first wife like prepared me for prison. Like I was like, it wasn't as bad.
I saw something that said it's hey, you think you're having a bad day? There's some dude waking up with your ex-wife, thinking he met his soulmate. That is a beautiful. That keeps me going. That keeps me going.
You have a good relationship with her, though. It's
I
a funny
do now.
relationship.
I do
now.
now.
You do.
And I do with my first one.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe you'll have one with the second one
Maybe.
eventually.
Maybe.
Eventually.
Yeah.
It's a little
50,
fresh.
60 years.
Yeah. Takes time. So anyway, so I end up, Frank files a motion, a 2255. We go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. At some point, and I think Jim will probably understand this more so than most people. I mean, I don't want to go into it too much. The judge ends up saying, because we argued equitable tolling again, that my lawyer didn't understand. This is my next lawyer. Like being my lawyer is a mistake. Right? She was incompetent. She's ineffective. She didn't understand.
Still comes and testifies for you.
She hangs
Thanks,
out.
Mel.
We wave. We hug.
We say all this and we go back and forth, and the judge, after going back, forth, the judge says, listen, I don't believe that I have jurisdiction to rule on this. He said, so I'm denying it, but I'm giving you a certificate of appealability.
Interesting.
Appealability?
Yeah,
So take it to the next level.
right.
And you have my permission to do so.
And I'm waiving the fee that Mr. Cox has to pay. I had to pay a $500 fee. He said, I'm waiving the fee, giving him so first of all, he doesn't give you one. You go to the magistrate judge and you argue that you have the right to appeal. And the magistrate judge could say, I don't think you have a case. No. So, but the judge said, fuck that. Here's your certificate. And I'm waiving the $500. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go.
You're
Sorry.
good.
And I'm waiving the $500. You go forward. And what that's saying to the U.S. attorney, and to the appellate court is, I think he has something.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And because they saw that and they're like, oh shit, they immediately said, we would like a stay of the proceedings. We'd like to have the court assign a lawyer, and that lawyer flew down to Coleman and came and saw me. And I went in there and I said, what's going on? And she said, well, they're offering you 1 level reduction. And I went, okay. And they said, yeah, so 1 level reduction. And she goes, look, your stuff's written well, but you really don't have a prayer. And I go, well, I want 4 levels. Frank said 4 levels. This is a new attorney, by the way, who went to Harvard.
You're moving up in the world.
Yeah. And she said, yeah, no. She said, Matt, you just don't have a prayer. I said, you saw my last one. And she was like, right. I said, well, then if I don't have a prayer, you're going to lose. I said, then why are you here? Like, why, you think I'm going to get crushed? She goes, yeah. I go, then why not crush me? Why do this? Why spend 11 grand on you and fly you down here? Why do that? I said, because they might lose. She said, I don't think they'll lose. And I said, I think they might. And I think they're afraid. And I think that the judge is letting them know. And this is what I say. And this is what Frank says. And Frank said 4 levels. So I'll take 4 levels. She goes, I'll go back. And she goes, who's Frank? We go through the whole thing over. And she's like, you're listening to the advice of a mentally...
yes.
I'm
Yes,
like,
I am.
You're damn
That's
right.
exactly what
He
I'm doing.
just got 7 years knocked off my sentence. Of course I'm going to listen to him. So I got Harvard here's telling me you don't have a prayer. I've got batshit crazy saying let's run
4
this.
levels, baby.
Yeah.
So she goes back. She comes back. She says, and this takes 6 months, no, maybe 4 months. And she says, listen, 2 levels. They'll go 2 levels. I said, okay, 2 levels. No. Frank said 4 levels. And she goes, well, did you tell Frank this? Did you? we're going back.
I want Frank in here immediately.
One level is 30 months, right?
No. By this point, 1 level is only like 21 months.
Okay.
So where are we at? What do you have left at this point? How much time?
I've got 7 years.
7 years. Okay. So they're saying we'll kick 2. Basically, we'll kick 2 off.
Right. So, and so we go back and forth, and I said, look, you let them know that I want. And by the way, by this point we're ordering Freedom of Information Acts. We're asking the judge to give us like discovery. We're like all this. Keep in mind, I also know that no discovery was ever compiled for Freedom of Information Act from the FBI. And it's like over 100, 200,000 pages. So they're yelling, saying if the FBI has to file, this will take hundreds of hours for them to compile this. Well, that's not my fault. And I said, and we're then telling them we want to have an evidentiary hearing, which is my right. And I want the FBI agent from Kevin White's case. I want the FBI agents. We got like 10 people, and I have the right to ask.
Yeah.
So they're like, what are you going to turn this into a circus? And I go, absolutely. We'll drag this fucker out. Like you have to give me the 1 level just to file it.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, that's not true. They already had filed the 1 level, by the way. They'd already filed one. We asked them to stop.
So you'd have to amend it, or it was stayed. Okay.
Right, because he never ruled on it.
Okay.
So what ends up happening is we go back and forth. And so one day I'm on the phone. I call Leanne, my new lawyer, and I said, Leanne, what's going on? And she said, okay. She said, I just talked to him. She said, they're willing to. It's one of 2 things. You either take 3 levels, or we're going back to court. I said, I'll take the 3 levels.
So that's 63 months?
Right. Well, first what she said was, she goes, we'll take 3 levels. She said, it's 3 levels. She said, you go back to court. She goes, so I guess where I told them we would go back to court, because I said, no. I said, I'll take the 3 levels. And she goes, well, you said you wouldn't take less than 4. I said, no, I said, Frank said to tell you.
Go 4.
Not to take less than 4.
You just got me up to 3.
I said, Frank said we were always good with 3. I said 3 levels. I said, basically, we have just enough time to put me in for a fucking halfway house. I get a year halfway house. And she's like, and I said, yeah, we're good. Let's go with 3 levels. So
that's over 5 years off your sentence.
It's 5 years.
Yeah.
So Frank Amodeo got me 12 years knocked off my sentence.
Wow. So it went from 26 and 4 down to 14 and 4, and you had already done 1 before you got in there.
So yeah, I've got maybe 2.5 or 3 years left. So it's almost 3 years left. 3 years left. But with a halfway house, it would have been it was less than that. It was like 2 years off.
Yeah.
Because I was going to get a year off the halfway house. So I ended up going into RDAP just to stay in the institution. So yeah, that was the thing about Amodeo is that if I even think about what he did for me, like there's no fucking way. Like I joke about him and I fuck with, and I joke about it. And it's true. Listen, he's batshit crazy. Like there's no doubt. Like, I mean, even he'll laugh about it. But bro, I'd be in prison right now. I had, my out date was 2030. And I wouldn't even go to this guy. I thought he was so fucking insane. And he just and he paid for everything. No, Cox, I got that. No, I'll pay for the typists. I'll pay for, he had guys that he had trained just to do divorces. He had guys that were trained just to do certain things. And he handled 2255s. And 2251s and 2255s. So he handled those, but he had guys specially trained to do research on certain things, to type up motions, he had all these specialty people. He was running a mid-size law firm. And he had guys that were essentially like lawyers. He had my buddy Pete. He called them associates. Like he said, these are my 4 associates. Wow. He had paralegals, associates, typists, which are essentially secretaries. It was an insane fucking operation. And then I get out of prison. When I eventually get out of prison, he got 22 years. He'd been down, I think he did 7.
Oh, so he got
He
15
got
off
out
his
of
own.
prison. No, he's out of prison. He's in Orlando right now. He started buying fucking companies and rebuilding them. He's doing the whole thing all over again. Everybody's like, "You're going to go back to prison. You're going to end up getting yourself back in prison."
Well, he has
they
some
even threw him back
severe
in. They threw him back in prison too. By the way,
When?
they threw him back in prison about a year and a half ago. He was in prison for about 6 months, and he got himself back out of prison. They violated his probation for no reason. They violated. They said that he was.
He is fascinating.
He's listen. I'm telling you. Difficult to deal with, but yes, absolutely.
You know what though? That goes to show you, like, obviously he has some severe mental problems, like some health problems. Like that's literally documented.
I mean, he's
weren't they? But a couple things here.
yeah.
Number one, it does go to show you that, and I'm not excusing the stuff the guy has done. Like, you know, it's really fucked up. But you know, it goes to show you that you can find humanity in some interesting places, because clearly, like, this guy wanted to be, but like. Perhaps like in his life, he wanted to do the right thing and his mind stopped him from always doing the right thing. And he had enough power and smarts that when he did the wrong thing, it was really fucking bad. But then when he's got nothing else to do, he could sit there and say, fuck everyone. And he can fill his commissary with all the money he wants, but he takes the time and helps guys like you. And it's very cool to see that.
Oh yeah, he's and he would get so indignant and so angry and so offended and upset at like the government. They can't do this, and then he. I'm going to make them bow down in D.C. Fight for the next year and a half and knock 6 years off your sentence and get nothing for it. No, nothing for it. But listen, they you know, Pete called him, you know, everybody, well, not every, almost everybody called him the emperor. And you would see he would walk. He'd have 2 or 3 guys behind him holding his stuff. It was almost it's comical if he wasn't
needs
so
a movie.
He wasn't so fucking effective.
Exactly.
Like it'd be comical if he wasn't walking people out of prison. You'd think, oh, look at this silly little guy. No. It's
Get
not
him out.
silly. He's walking around. He'd be walking around, and he'd walk around and do this. He'd you know,
Like the
you'd
Kanye
say,
West, like this, where he like moves his fingers and they spread.
No. Like people would go. You'd walk by and you'd go, Emperor, and he'd go, Emperor, how are you? Like just like a little, how are you? With
Like
his
the
little
white
hand.
Kim Jong Un.
Yeah, exactly. How are you? And you know they go, Frank, can I talk to you? Frank, can I talk to you? Yeah, what's up? Okay, listen. Tuesday at 7 o'clock.
Hard stop at 7.
Yeah, Tuesday at 7. We all new cases Tuesday at 7. Bring your indictment. Bring your this. And you're like, guys would be lining up. And then what's so funny too? This used to crack us up. He was on the 2nd level of the building, right? So when you walk out, it's probably a pad that's about 3 times the size of this table, right? Like we're actually about the size of this room. So you walk out and there's a stairway that goes all the way down. So you walk out the double doors, that upper level of the prison. You walk over and you can look out over the whole compound. But right underneath, roughly underneath him and to the side are areas where people sit. And Frank would walk out and he'd look out over his people and he'd sit there and people would say, Frank. It's not quite it wasn't quite that, but it was, how are you? And he would look at, and we used to say, look, it's Frank looking out over the masses. Like he had, it was like Mussolini, or, you know, looking out over the, you know, El Duce, you know.
Yeah.
It was hilarious. And the funniest thing was, so I'll tell you one more thing. And he had, so he used to give you a speech when he was going to do your case. He'd say, listen, let me explain something. He'd go, I'm the pilot. You're just a passenger. I'm flying the plane. You understand? I understand. It's your plane. But I'm flying the plane. Don't tell me how to fly the plane. Do you understand? Or you can get somebody else. You know, so that's where this is. Or he's like, or I will throw you out of the plane. I'll give you all your stuff back and throw you right out of the plane. And you know, you're like, I don't know if he's serious, but I'm also like a drug dealer and I don't know enough about the law. So if this is, and he's walking people out. So of course, the problem was you get into the law and then guys would come up to him and they go, Frank, did you see the new Johnson case? Johnson versus, you know, whatever. I have a gun charge. You go, no. That's for a career criminal enhancement that you don't have because of this and this and this. You go, yeah, but Paul so-and-so got it. And he go, no, this doesn't, listen. And he'd sit there and he'd start to get, you know, and you don't know enough to understand it doesn't apply to you. And he'd get a little bit frustrated and he's busy and he would sit there and next thing you know, he would go manic on you. And he would just, you know, I'm going to, you know, I will give you all of your legal work back. You can have your buddy Paulie do it, and he just, and he would,
Paulie.
So getting thrown out of the airplane, my friend Donovan said, bro, like Frank threw this guy out of the plane. And then maybe a couple days later, he go, bro, you don't understand. He threw this guy out of the plane. He goes, he didn't throw him out of the plane, bro. He threw him out of the plane into the turbine. He hit the fucking engine. He turbined him. And so it became, Frank's about to turbine this dude. And it was getting turbined. And Frank would go on a rampage and we'd be like, oh shit, Frank's going to turbine this dude. Frank's going to turbine this dude. And next thing you know, he'd go, I will... What did he say? I will anthrax your entire village. And the guy'd be like, I'm from Palm Beach. Palm Beach then. And I will. And then he'd calm down and he'd go, I'm giving you all your legal work. And then, listen, you would see these guys who were like tough gangster kind of, no, Frank, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, Frank, please don't. I mean, they're practically on their knees begging him. If you say one more word to me, Frank, I won't say anything else. I won't say anything else. I mean, it was pathetic.
And he's got all the leverage.
Yeah.
He's the guy.
It was great. It was great.
Wasn't there something though with his case that I don't know if it was you uncovered it with the FOIA stuff, but somebody figured out that the government was drugging him, and so he actually
figured out that was a given.
It was a given. What do you mean it was a given?
It's in all the transcripts. He lists everything in front of the judge. All the drugs he's taking. We're like Thorazine and this drug. And he lists all these drugs. And they're like, well, do you feel you're competent enough to move forward? And he's like, I feel I have an understanding of what's going on with the. I mean, he's drool's running out of his side of his fucking cheek. He didn't know what's going on. He's barely cohesive. What am I trying to say? Cognitive of what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Barely conscious.
Up on so much shit.
And yeah, they convinced him to take a plea, thinking he's going to get a year or two, and they end up giving him like 22 years.
Now you also met. You had said this a little bit earlier, but in writing his book, that's when you met Bustamante.
Yeah,
and we've told the story now. I think we're filming this like right before the episode's going to come out with me, Jim, Danny, and Bustamante down from when we were on Danny Jones' podcast, but we told it on there that you were the original guy who found Bustamante and convinced Danny to bring him on. But how did you, was Bustamante like intimately aware of his case? Is that how you got in touch with him, or just because he was a CIA expert, you wanted to know some recon on things? I
had a guy who contacted me, and he ran a podcast called like Kilo 23 or 23 Kilo.
Okay.
And he's like a security expert, and he also runs a channel, and he's interviewed a few former CIA guys, a couple of ex-KGB guys, and different type of security experts. And he contacted me and said, it's funny, I'd like to interview you. He's like I don't have my subscribers where I want, and I want to get a little bit more content, but I'd love to interview you. Would you be interviewed? I said, absolutely, no problem. Well, when I started writing Frank's book, I'd already written a synopsis of his story, which was, 15 pages long. So I'd already written that, and I wanted to expand it into a full-length book because, keep in mind, just doing the research on Frank's case, I'd read all his transcripts, and there was so much good stuff that didn't make it into the synopsis that I really felt like it would take nothing to blow this up to 40 or 50,000 words, which isn't even a big book. It's a small book. That's not even 300 words. It's like 200 words. So I said, I want to do this, but I thought, what I would love to do is get some kind of a former CIA person or CIA. You're not going to get somebody in the CIA, but somebody who's
allegedly,
right? Somebody former CIA or retired CIA, and have them kind of like read even if. And I really kind of expected them to read through and say like, this couldn't have happened, or this wouldn't have happened that way, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with you disagreeing with Frank's narrative or what Frank's saying happened. But because Frank had talked about being approached by the CIA, he actually tested for the CIA. He was offered a job by the CIA, and he says
when he was young, or
yeah, when he was in college in university, which is funny because Bustamante said that's back then it was very common for the CIA to try and recruit from people with law degrees.
Where was he in school again? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was in Atlanta. It was
interesting.
I forget the name of it.
The word on the street that, I mean, I don't know, but when you talk to some of the CIA guys, apparently like the heaviest place when they do that historically when they're looking at college recruits is on the Ivy Leagues. They look at like Yale, they look at Harvard, they look at Dartmouth. Interesting.
Wasn't Ivy League, but
okay. But he is smart and he is okay.
So and then later in life there were things that happened that Frank had said he was approached by the CIA. This was during the Congo, the coup in the Congo that they attempted.
That Frank attempted.
That Frank will say it wasn't a coup. We were just backed a political candidate, and the Congolese say it was an armed coup. And Frank says they didn't have guns, and it's like, Frank, I feel like there were 32 guys that got arrested here, another 30 or so here, and I feel like they weren't just walking around without guns. You also hired people from South Africa and from Nigeria that were also part of your security detail. And I'm going to say that South Africa is in Nigeria kind of known for private security, and they carry guns.
Can we delve into that a little bit, just because I've heard the high level on this, and you touched on it earlier, just like the broad strokes. But how exactly did he first get into the Congo, and what was going on that made him think, oh, I can hire this team of 32, we're going to back a political candidate, and then we're going to like take over the military?
Inexhaustible amount of money from the federal government that he'd stolen is probably why he thought he could do it.
$180 million.
Right. So
that's not like, I mean, that's a lot of money.
No, that's not a lot to win in the. First of all, the problem with the Congo is this: the current president at that time was the son of the previous president, and like Bustamante will tell you, like in South America, in Africa.
Collegiate culture type shit. Yeah.
Right. You don't get there because you're charismatic and smart. You get there because you're cunning and brutal.
Yes.
And so these were brutal people. So the number one candidate is the current president who was running for, right? And keep in mind that the NATO was helping maintain kind of the peace, right, for the elections, the free elections. So one, we've got the president, and two, we've got a general who's not the kind of general that we think of here. Like he's got his own army, and it's a government-run army.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly like the president can fire him. They're very loyal to him. It's like if the president fired him, he might be like, I don't think so. Maybe I'll just take over. So it's touchy. But he's also running for president. So there was a Congolese-born citizen who went to the United States and became a doctor. So he's educated in the United States, but he's Congolese. He's born in the Congo. So he comes to Frank and says, I'm interested in getting security, because Frank owned a private security company that was run by a former Secret Service agent, the head of the Secret Service agent detail for George Bush Sr. And he says, I need security. And Frank, after talking to him, said, what if we backed you also? He said, all I want you to do is, if we back you, is to run we'll run your campaign. And then, of course, they ended up saying that they worked out a deal. We'll provide this, we'll do this, you give us the rights to this, we do this for you, we do, back and forth. He basically wanted to hire Congolese. There's a tribe one of the tribes in Congo that he wanted to hire because they're kind of disenfranchised. Wanted to hire them as a private militia, so like a private military that would be would be run by Frank. So now you don't necessarily have the issue. You don't necessarily have the issue with the generals that don't necessarily listen to you, right?
No.
So, but he would do that because they would have rights to the minerals and all of these. Right.
There it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, because it's got the highest concentration in the world of like zinc, gold, diamonds, like all these. But you can't get to them because they've been fighting for 50 years.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is Frank goes in there. His candidate in the first couple months is number, I want to say 30, 32, 33 out of all the candidates. He's like last. In 6 months, he goes from last to number 3. Billboards everywhere. He's selling out arenas. There's advertising everywhere. There's just a ton of money being dumped. And so what do? They swoop in one day. They arrest all of these guys, the political guys. They pull his guys off the plane. Like 2 of the guys are getting on a plane. They pull them off the plane.
The Congolese government arrests them.
No, the military. So the guy the candidate that's in second place is a general. He has his troops go in and arrest all these guys. They bring them there. Periodically, they would bring them outside and do a mock execution for the cameras. There's a whole video. It's called 9 Days in the Congo.
Yeah.
It's great.
Amazing.
So,
and then when did the CIA get involved with him?
Well, I mean, so it takes 9 days for him to get these guys back. Obviously, his candidate is flipped out. Like he never ends up running. I think he takes like 3rd or 4th or 5th.
Yeah, there it is. We got the video on the screen here. 9 days in the Congo. All right, continue. Sorry.
Oh, look at that. You got to pay for premium. What do you think?
I have premium. That's his computer. That's why.
Okay. So
anyway, go ahead.
What ends up happening is he gets back and he starts to. He's got a private security forces, right? Well, the private security forces are also guarding convoys in Afghanistan. So you drop off like seeds for the farmers, and somebody the army doesn't have time to. So he does it. They guard whatever embassies or whatever they do, whatever the private people do. Well, what happens is he ends up getting approached by somebody. Well, he gets approached by a guy. He's approached a couple times. Eventually, he ends up getting approached by. It's a little bit, convoluted, but he ends up getting approached by a guy that says that they want him. They like what he was doing in the Congo. I like where your head's at. Yeah. Like where your head's at in the Congo,
Respect.
Frank.
Great.
Respect, right? And we have an issue in Tajikistan, which is this tiny little country. Like it is. It's ridiculous. We have this problem in Tajikistan, and we want
Kazakhstan.
Basically, what would it take if we could essentially have the military back off? And all you basically have to do is take the capital. You have to basically take this one city. Like it's like you go into Washington, this isn't a well-structured system. You can cut the head off the snake and everybody falls into place. And basically they're saying, look, if you go in and do this. And so he's kind of in negotiations. And he also at one point was approached by the CIA. Here's what killed me. So I got this from another guy. Like Frank didn't tell me this because there's sometimes I would push the envelope and Frank would say like, I can't talk about that. So I got this through a friend of his and he said he was approached at Disney World.
Oh.
No, it wasn't Disney. It was either Disney or Epcot, I think.
Same shit.
But the point is that when I thought this is the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard, right? Like you're going to Epcot and you're meeting with CIA agents. But when I talked to Bustamante, he's like, it's not bad. He's like, think about it. There's a ton of people around. Mm-hmm. You have to go through security. You're okay. There's so many people there. It's and I'm like, you would think you would want to meet where there's nobody. He's like, no. So
you never get seen again if you do that.
Frank ends up getting arrested before any of this other stuff this stuff happens, right? Like there's several things. He went to NATO. He backed the NATO summit at Latvia in Riga. Like his symbol is when they list all the people that backed them, that paid. His company's on there. So, I mean, it's like there's all these things, you read the transcripts and the judge is like, what? Like, what do you mean he met with President Bush? Don't they screen these people? Like, this is the president, this is the, he's like, he's a felon. How did he? Anyway, what ends up happening is he ends up getting arrested. But I wanted somebody to look at this stuff that I thought was so insane. Like, there's just no way this is what happens. And so I contacted the guy, Kilo 23, and I said, I need to talk to like a CIA guy. Do you have one? He's like, I got 3 of them. I said, okay. I said, I need somebody that's going to just basically would be willing to probably read a manuscript and give me their opinion of different parts of the manuscript so that I can get somebody that kind of lends validity to this, or just strikes it down as being pure insanity. Like, I'm okay if he said, this guy's crazy. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But that's not what Bustamante said. He was like, there was one very, very few times that he said, this seems like not the way that I would think it would happen. It's not that it couldn't happen this way. I believe that this is more like this would happen. But 90% of the stuff was like, absolutely, I believe that's very possible. Absolutely, they
90%.
If you read it, and Bustamante's just super smart,
Yeah,
great, and he talks about like the mental issues that CIA agents have, and that that they have alpha. You get a bunch of same thing FBI. You get a bunch of alpha guys together, so you've got all these issues. You have personality defects. But like I'm sure you've heard me say this before. It's like saying, okay, well, why would anybody follow a narcissist? You follow a narcissist because he's confident, he's willing to push the truth, maybe even lie. He's willing to he's willing to be aggressive. He's willing to fake his way through it. You know what I'm saying? Like he's the guy that gets things done. People don't like him. He's not super, he doesn't, he hurts your feelings. He's bullyish. He pushes.
Compartmentalized, big time.
Right. But that's the guy that gets it done.
Absolutely.
Right. At the end of the day, you probably don't want to have a relationship with this person, but he probably will turn your small company into $1 billion company, or he'll end up in prison.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Right. So, and that was what Bustamante was saying. He's like, yeah, this is what happens. This is what these guys do. This is what happens. And Frank was clearly on his way, and had 1 or 2 things gone his way, he may very well be in charge of 5 or 6 different countries in Africa right now. You don't know. And here's the thing. It's not even unrealistic. What was the name of the British guy that owned a huge security firm that was taking over countries in Africa? He ended up getting arrested.
Can we look that up? Man, British guy, Africa security firm.
Right.
Let's see what that is.
He launched he took over one country and launched a coup against another country and ended up going to prison.
I don't know if I know this story. This guy? Mark Shuttleworth?
No, that's not it. I'll recognize the name.
Wait. UK security firm GS4 under fire over. No, that's not it.
No, this would have been back in the 90s, I think. Like he literally there was a coup, and the rebels had taken over
Cecil Rhodes?
No, an oil field. And this guy, he took his forces, went in and took the oil field back over. It ends up taking over the whole country.
Oh.
He ends up getting overthrown, of course, and it's a whole thing. But he ends up going to prison.
There's this guy. Simon Mann?
That's Simon Mann.
Right,
that's
cool.
him. That's Simon Mann.
All right,
that's
click
it.
that. Click that.
Knew I'd remember it.
Simon Mann.
Sandhurst guy, huh?
Simon Mann is a British mercenary and former officer in the SAS. He trained to be an officer at Sandhurst and was commissioned into the Scots Guards. He later became a member of the SAS. On leaving the military, he co-founded Sandline International with fellow ex-Scots Guards Colonel Tim Spicer in 1996. Sandline operated mostly in Angola and Sierra Leone, but a contract with the government of Papua New Guinea attracted a significant amount of negative publicity, in which became known as the Sandline Affair. On March 7th, 2004, Mann is alleged to have led the 2004 Equatorial Guinea coup d'etat attempt. He was arrested by Zimbabwean police in Harare airport along with 64 other mercenaries. He eventually served 3 years of a 4-year prison sentence in Zimbabwe. That's got to be tough out there. And less than 2 years of a 34 years and 4 months sentence in Equatorial Guinea. Wow. A whole different fucking Wild West out there, man.
Bro, like that's the kind of that's Frank. That's what Frank is doing. And that's the kind of thing that is happening. So it's not like it's out of the realm of possibility.
No. That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, you end up having 3,000-4,000 of your own guys. I mean, look at these guys like Blackwater and, it's insane.
Yeah, and Blackwater, what's his name? Eric Prince. the head of Blackwater, this wasn't supposed to happen. It was like against protocol, but he got exposed as, am I allowed to say that? We might have to cut that. I don't know if that is public info.
He went to.
I didn't say what it was yet, so that's cool. We'll keep that.
Friends of Epstein.
No. What I mean, I don't know. That's not what I was getting at.
Sure,
but no, there's something. Yeah, let's get off that. Let's get back to you. So anyway, sometimes when you're in here and you're like, wait a second, and things start to be like, is that something that's not on air? It's tough sometimes. I do my best with it. Real quick, to all my Discord people out there, the Julian Dorey Discord is officially live. I put the link down in the description below. So go hit that, join the community, and say what's up. There's all kinds of features in there, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Let's get it popping. But getting back to what you were doing. So you get... What I want to understand is there were two main stories there that got you like, what was it? Like 3 or 4 levels and then 3 levels again. You get effectively 12 years off your prison sentence, the 7 and the 5. But were there other things along the way that you're like snitching on to get an advantage in prison? Or that was it?
Like, you know, what's so funny? It's like, honestly, like, let's say this guy's got a cell phone. Man, I'm not getting any time. I don't care what you do with your cell phone. Like, I'm not getting any time off for a cell phone. So-and-so's got drugs. I don't care about drugs. I'm not getting time. Like, listen, I'm very specific on what I think will get me time off. I wasn't even going to say anything about Wilson. I literally, it was such a fluke. If my lawyer hadn't said anything going on, I would have been like, okay, well, yeah, send me the stuff, whatever, click. That would have been it. I hadn't even talked to Frank about it. Nothing. It wasn't till, if that agent hadn't called, like as soon as that agent called, I was like, I went and told Frank, this is what's going on. This is what happened. What? And he goes, document everything. He said, we'll get you something. He said, I said, they're never going to indict this guy. He's already got 19 and a half years. It's done. It's done. He said, you don't know. He said, if you get any money back and they admit that you got money back, he said, well, I'll get you something off. And I thought, damn. But here's the thing. You know, Wilson, you know, COVID happened, right? He got out of prison. He's out.
Oh, yeah, because he's older.
Yeah. He's older. He got out. He ended up doing like 5 or 6 years, I think.
That's nuts.
On a 20-year sentence.
That's crazy. So did your friend, the judge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't, but when you mentioned that to me that you knew him in there, I ended up having him Marsha Levick for episode 131, I think it was.
Did you interviewed him?
No, I had in Marsha, who's the woman who blew the whole thing wide open, that whole case open.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, my friend Matt Cox was in prison. That guy was on his legal team.
Yeah, he was great.
Crazy, dude.
He was. He and Frank, the judge, they used to talk all the time about, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But especially the lawsuit with Efraim Diveroli. We'd go and talk to the judge. Judge couldn't stand Efraim. Nobody could stand Efraim.
All right, that's what we're going to get to next. But Jim, just so you know, we're referring to the Kids for Cash case.
Yep.
That judge, Conahan, was in there with him. And he got out of prison he was supposed to do like, what was it, like 18, 19 years in prison, but he got out during COVID.
Right. How much did Amodeo, how much did Wilson do? Oh, I got to tell you one more thing about Wilson.
Okay, go for it. I don't know if we're going to find that out. Ron Wilson moved to halfway house after serving time. Look,
how much time?
Up to.
How much?
Wilson will be released in December 2029 and be placed on probation. So he was sentenced to 19 years. So he got out in like 2020. So he did like 9-10 years, I'm going to guess. Just based on math.
And when did you say we got arrested?
In 2012, Wilson was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison for his Ponzi scheme.
Okay, so 2012 minus 2019,
2020 was COVID, 8 years. Same thing. COVID was 2020.
I thought it just said he'd be in halfway house in 2019.
It said 2029, but this is before COVID. Okay, so he ended up doing 8 years.
Right. Okay. So he did 8 years on a 20-year sentence. So here's the other thing about him. Listen to this. So one day I'm sitting there after my sentence gets reduced. They knock 5 years off my sentence. I'm waiting. I got a couple years, right? Like a year and a half to go before I go to halfway house. Depending on how much, I really could have had a year if they gave me a year halfway house. They didn't. They ended up giving me 7 months halfway house. But I thought I was going to get a year. So I felt like I had a year left. So I'm sitting there one day in my, cell waiting for a count, right? 4 o'clock count. So I'm sitting there And when new guys come to the prison, they have like they wear their like their bus clothes, right? They give you like, khakis and like a shitty shirt, a t-shirt. And they always get you into, so no matter when you show up during the day, they basically have to have you in the unit to be counted. So you might get there at 3 o'clock and they'll hold count to try and rush you over and get you into the unit. So I'm standing there one day in my cell, and this black guy is directly across the street. He's 4 feet away. He's directly across the hallway from me, standing there. And he just got there, and I'm standing there. And he goes, and everybody's quiet during count, right? Like you walk in. If they were walking around and they hear somebody talk, they're like, who said that? Who's talking? They'll go fucking nuts and get over here. It's just, oh, shit. So everybody just stands there. But they haven't gotten to my unit yet. They're still counting the other unit. So you're sitting there. People are maybe whispering. And I'm sitting there, and the black guy looks over at me. He goes, hey, bro. And I go, yeah, what's up? And he says, you know a guy named Matt Cox? Now, keep in mind, that's not that. There's 2,000 people there, but if 60% of them are black and there's, less than 10% are white, it's not that hard. You ask you ask 3 white guys, they're going to know. Yeah. Cox is in that cell over there, or he's 2 units over. So I'm standing there. He goes, you know, a guy named Matt Cox? And I go, yeah. And he looked at me. He said, all right, I need to talk to him. And I went, I said, I'm Matt Cox. He's, nah, man. And I pull out my ID and I go, and he goes, he goes, okay, cool. All right. He looks around and he goes, I was locked up with Ron Wilson. And I went, okay. And now I'm kind of.
You're trying to slide away.
You're not sure what's going down.
Right. And he sat there and he went, I was in South Carolina. He was when he got his discovery. And in his discovery were 100 emails between me and the Secret Service. Oh my God. And I went, okay. And he said, yeah, he got sentenced. He got like 6 months. I said, I heard that. And he goes, he gave me a message for you. And I thought, fuck, this doesn't sound good. I feel like this could go all kinds of bad. But also, this wasn't a super big guy, right? But he was bigger than me.
It's not hard to do.
Yeah, I know. So I'm thinking, he's not going to beat me too bad. I'm definitely getting moved. I'm going to SHU for 3 months. They'll put me on a bus. I'm not going to see my mom again. And I'm like, okay. And I'm really, at this point, I'm waiting for he said to tell you that he doesn't have any hard feelings. He'd have done the same thing, and to let you know that he's at peace and he's found Jesus.
There you go.
All right. Shit.
I like that.
He was a fairly religious guy before,
that's
by
pretty
the way.
cool,
It's
man.
not like the Jesus thing was out of the realm.
He's
of
refinding him.
Yeah. And I
got
sat
lost a little
there,
bit.
and what's so funny is
Never too late.
I wasn't super concerned, right? But I looked at him and I went, is this going to be an issue? And he looked at me, he said, he goes, nah, bro, that's not going to be an issue. He said, like, I got like, I think he got like, whatever he said, 8 years. He was like, I got 8 years. He said, I've been down about a year. He said, but I'm going to be out of here real, real soon, if you know what I'm saying. And I said, he said, yeah. He said, you keep that between you and me and we'll be good, right? I said, yep, we're good. He said, all right. He said, yeah, all right. I said, all right. That was it. That was it. Like,
so it worked out for you.
I would love, like, I'm waiting till I get off probation and I will contact Wilson. No doubt in my mind, I will contact him. Listen, this guy, like, he may be upset, but you know what he also may do? This is the kind of guy he is. He's also the kind of guy that would say, yeah, I'll do a podcast. Yeah. And he's that guy. You're like, are you serious? I got out a couple years later. It's fun. I'd have done the same thing. He's that guy.
As your security consultant, I'd recommend we're not going to do that.
Is that right? He's insane. But I don't want to do it while I'm on probation because one phone call to my probation officer and I could have an issue.
Jim, do you got to go? You're saying? Go for it. All right, let's stop for 1 minute. We'll pick back up. All right, Diveroli. We've been waiting to get there all day. So this is the War Dogs guy. As you said, Jonah Hill played him in the movie. You wrote the book Once a Gun Runner. That's what it's called, right?
Right.
So when did he get into prison in Coleman? When did you meet him? Like 2013, 2012, somewhere in there?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Okay. Now, were you familiar? Had you heard his story on the news or something in prison at all? Or
No, I had read his. I read an article in Rolling Stone magazine. By this point, I was finishing my book, and I kind of decided I wanted to start writing true crime stories. And somebody just came, so guys are giving them to me all the time. So some guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, Cox, you ought to check this out," and just hands me the Rolling Stone article, "Arms and the Dudes." And I was like, okay. So I read the article, and I thought, oh man, that's really interesting. And then I didn't think anything about it. And probably a couple of weeks later, I was standing in line waiting for chow, and the same guy goes, "Hey, bro," he's like, "You know that guy that in the Rolling Stone article?" I was like, "Right." He's right there. I said, "No," and he was like really like overweight. And I go, "That guy?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's him." And I was just like, holy shit. So I was like, "Wow, are you sure?" He's like, "Absolutely. I know he's in so-and-so. He got here a couple days ago." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So probably a few days later, and I remember that guy said, "Bro, you ought to talk to him about writing a story." I was like, that guy's like a multi-millionaire, and he can write his own story, and he probably already has someone writing his story. So anyway, he said, "Oh, you ought to ask." I was like, "Yeah." So a couple days later, I saw him on the rec yard, and I went up to him and I said, "Hey, are you interested in having someone write your story, or are you having someone write your story?" And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, if you're interested," I said, like, I could help you write an outline. Like I write stories, and I'm finishing my manuscript right now. I've got a literary agent." And he was like, "I'll think about it. I'll think about it." Because he basically said he specifically said that he was bipolar, ADHD, and he said there's no way I could sit down long enough to write a story. I said, "Well, I could help you write an outline, and then you could give it to somebody on the street, like a real writer." And he was like, "I'll think about it." And I was like, "Okay." And like months went by, 6 months went by, and he would see me once a week, maybe twice a week, and he'd see me, and you're walking, you look up and you glance, you make eye contact. Sometimes we just walk right by each other because there's lots of people walking around, and I look up and we make eye contact. He goes, "Still thinking about it?" Like, all right, but I had blown it off. And then one day he was walking across the compound, and he saw me. He's like, "Hey, Cox." And I go, "Yeah, what's up?" And he said, "That Rolling Stone article?" Keep in mind, the Rolling Stone article was written from David Packouz's perspective, not Diveroli's. So he goes, "Hey, bro," he said, "that the Rolling Stone article?" I said, "Right." He said, it got sold." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, it got purchased. He said, "Todd Phillips purchased it." And I go, "Who?" And he goes, "Todd Phillips." He goes, "The guy that does the Hangover movies." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He said, "Yeah, they're going to make a movie about my life," even though it wasn't written about his life. He's definitely the main, most interesting person in this. And he said, "Yeah, they're going to make a movie about my life. That's pretty cool, right?" And I went, "The guys that did the Hangover movies are going to make a movie about you." He's right. And I went, "Oh, wow, bro." I said, "I mean, you seem like a sharp guy, And he's like, "Right?" And I said, "Do you understand? Have you seen those movies?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "They're going to make a movie called Dude, Where's My Hand Grenade?" And you're going to be a laughingstock.
Yeah.
I said, you're going to be synonymous with like, Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Like, you're going to be a joke. I said, and you could have gotten the drop on them just by writing an outline, having someone write a short memoir on you, 200, 300 pages. People would rather see a movie about you based on your memoir than an article from someone else who's talking about you." I said, "I don't know if you read the article," but I said, "He didn't make you sound all that great." And he was like, "Bro, when can we start? You can help me?" I was like,
Got to the ego. There you go.
"Right." Well, and I said, "You're going to have to get out of prison. Like, you're going to get out of prison, and what's going to happen? Like, you're going to get out of prison, and people are going to look at you, and there's going to be if there's a movie even made, which I didn't even know there would be a movie made, but they did they option lots of stuff and never make it. So I was like, if they make a movie, like now you'll say your name and people are going to be like, oh, just like the guy on that movie, like you're a joke. You're like, oh yeah, that's actually me. Really, they're going to paint you as being a lying, cheating bastard. Like, who wants to do business with you? And he was like, damn, bro, yeah, we need to meet. So it still took a month or so. We ended up meeting. We write an outline over the course of a few months. And then while we were writing the outline, he said, hey, can I read your book? I said, sure. So I gave my manuscript and he read it and he came back and he was like, bro, this is amazing. This is like one of the best things I've ever read. And, I was like, oh, well, I appreciate that. He goes, can you write my book?
How would you write, by the way, in there? Did you had access to a computer?
No, like you write on a legal pad. Like I'd write,
all handwritten,
scratch it out, write it again, and then I would go and I would type it out on the. It's kind of like an email system, but it's not. So you type it out and you could keep a draft. So then I was able to alter the drafts, and then when it was in good enough shape, I could email it to somebody on the outside, and they put it in a Word document.
Got it.
But you can imagine how cumbersome that is.
Oh yeah.
There's no word processing function. So I would print it out and let people read it and say, hey, man, you misspelled this word, you this, that.
And that was like you do that from a computer in the library?
No, it was in the unit, but it was in the unit.
Okay.
But it's still like, it's not like you have access to the internet or even to email someone. You're basically emailing a site that they then have to check to get it. And then they leave you an email that site. Then you have to check it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like an email. So anyway, so I let him read it. He read it. He said it was great. Asked me if I would consider writing his memoir. And I said, yeah. I said, well, first I told him, like, you could get a real writer. He's like, bro, you are a real writer. Like, I'm telling you, this is amazing. And so I was like, yeah, okay. So, we worked out a deal, and then I introduced him to my literary agent.
You already had a literary agent?
Yes.
When did you get him?
After I'd finished my book and sent off, or like I just kind of got him. Does that make sense? Like,
okay.
It was like within months, about a month or two before that. So,
got it.
And so, yeah, so I, introduced him to my literary agent, and they basically were like, you need to hurry up and write the book as quick as possible, because he's like, I want to be able to try and get a book deal and get our book sold so we can get a film made before Warner Brothers and Todd Phillips gets their film made. And so they were like, you need to just hurry up and get it made. Well, Diveroli was being transferred to Miami camp to go to the drug program down there. So we only had like a month and a half, 2 months to write the book. But I had a great outline. I'd already written a good outline. So I wrote maybe 1/3 of the book with him. And I remember telling my literary agent, I was like, listen, at one point I was like, listen, this guy has no endearing qualities. Do you understand? And he's like, what do you mean? I said, like, it's hard to try and make him sound like a sympathetic person or even an anti-hero. I said, he's really just a scoundrel.
How quickly did you pick up on that?
Not kind of like, the outline was like stories and feelings and a little here and a little, but when you really get back into it and really start talking, you realize like, wow, it's like, even when you tell somebody, you try and give them an out, like they say something that's horrific and you try and kind of like, well, you said that because of this and this and this, right? And he's like, nah, bro, just because of this. And you're like, so you owed this guy $1 million. Legitimately, you owed it to him. Right. He's like, yeah, but he didn't have nothing writing. Yeah, no.
So you fucked him.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I go, well, why didn't you just pay him? Like you owed him $1 million, but you made $2 million. Why didn't you owed him $1 million? Why didn't you just pay him? He's like, bro, even if this dude gets a fucking lawyer and pays the lawyer $200,000, and I pay a lawyer $200,000, let's say I pay my lawyer $500,000. I can beat him in court. He doesn't have anything in writing. I still make $500,000. And I'm like,
he's a shark.
Right. I'm like, that's fucked up, bro. And he's like, you don't understand. I'm like, no, I understand what you're saying is fucked up. And he just didn't give a shit. You know, so you know, and so I told that to my literary agent, and he was like, "Look, get me 300 pages." And he's like, "Make sure whatever you cover covers whatever was in the article in Rolling Stone, and expand on everything else." I'm like, "He's leaving soon. I don't have time to." And I ended up saying, I had written a book called Stranger Danger about a sex offender who ends up becoming a billionaire by renting out mobile homes, repossessed mobile homes to sex offenders. And it's super satirical. There you go, Stranger Danger.
God, what a name.
You like that picture?
That is a almost eerie picture.
We're doing the audio right now. So the audiobook right now. So it's extremely disturbing. Have you ever read any of Chuck? Is it Palahniuk? You know, the guy
Fight
who wrote
Club
Fight
guy?
Club. Yes.
I don't think I've read any of his stuff, no.
So he's written great stuff. And I really, the author's note, I talk about how I'd read everything he'd written up to that point. And I wrote it very much in that style. It's a couple hundred pages, and it's very chop, 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 and just disturbingly dark, disturbingly, satirically funny, right? Very disturbing. But and my literary agent had read the book. And I go, I remember I said, so the main guy, eventually he becomes a sex offender. He doesn't do anything wrong. He just gets framed. But the point is, I go, the main character in Stranger Danger is more sympathetic than Diveroli. And he said, and he sat there, and I remember the guy's name was Ross, my literary agent. He went, "You know what?" He said, "They have a lot in common." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "They both have these mothers that are all over them, right? They have this mother that's constantly berating them and following them and yelling at them and calling them out on things and causing probably a right." Because they also, like, he starts naming and there's several similarities. And I was like, "Right." He said, "Diveroli's leaving. Pull whatever you can from Stranger Danger and use it in his story." And he's like, "Any stories, any whatever." And I went, he said, "We're going to write that it's based on the true story."
Oh.
Anyway. And I was like,
this is really stretching it, though. Like,
"Oh, this is fabrication."
yeah, this is crazy.
And I was just like, wow. I was like, I mean,
I wonder how often this happens. Fuck.
I mean, I don't know, but Diveroli's leaving. And I was so just excited to be a part of it because Ross was excited about it. And here's the thing. So while we're having this conversation, Ross and I are having the conversation in the prison visitation room. Diveroli's meeting with his family. And so he leaves his family and comes and sits with us. And so we're all talking. This is like during like the introduction phase. And then we're going back and forth. And then we had another meeting. They all came. It was Diveroli and his sister, and they come. And we're going back and forth. And I remember at one point, Ross said, "Just get enough words so we can have it, because we need it to cover everything that was in the Rolling Stone article. We need to get it published as quick as possible. So I need about 300 pages," is what he said. About 90,000 words is roughly 90,000 words. We can publish it, get it published. He was already, he at that point, he wasn't talking to Simon & Schuster yet, but he's going back and forth. And I'm like, this is not something I want to do, but Diveroli's also leaving. Now he's down to like weeks. And I'm like, okay. Like, I don't know if you've written a book, but you just don't, nobody writes a book in a month or two.
No.
Right. I wrote that book in 3 months. I wrote 90,000 words in 3 months. Now, were all of the scenes? No. Was 1/3 of it? Was 25%? I don't know. There was a little here, a little there. I was twisting this, twisting that, making him sound funny, trimming down the more abusive comments that he would make, the more, just really trying to make him look as decent as a human being as possible.
Why not? You thought you couldn't sell it if there was nothing sympathetic about him?
No, it wasn't that. It was that I wanted to get it done in time so they could publish it. They wanted to publish it before. So right now, Todd Phillips had bought the article, the film rights to the article, but he hasn't done anything. He hasn't. They're in the middle of talking about writing a script. Like there's no competing project. So they're saying we get a book done, we publish it, and now we have a competing project. Now that stops or slows down Phillips's project. Or if he moves forward, it gives them the right to sue him. Because now listen to what they did.
Yeah.
Listen to what they did though. What they did was this. So Ross is telling me this. He's just telling me, get it done, get it done, get it done. I'm like, okay, I'll get it done, I'll get it done, I'll get it done. And he's saying it's based on, like, people don't realize, like, books that, this is actually probably 20 years ago. There's lots of books that were based on the true story. And they fabricated all kinds of stuff. Catch Me If You Can, a ton of it was fabricated.
Well, we found out that guy's not even like a real fraud. He was a fraud of a fraud.
Fraud of a fraud.
Yeah.
But even then, the book itself, like, so even, but it's based on, there's lots of books that were like that were based on, and then that way it gives them a wiggle room. So he was saying based on, okay, you're going to do based on, like, what do I care? Like, I just want to be a part of this whole thing. So, and it also, it's a memoir. This is what Diveroli told me. Like, to me, I'm saying, this is what, it's him. I'm just helping him write it. So I have a lot of wiggle room to say, didn't really do anything. Didn't really have much to do with that. That's what he told me. And nobody's going to ask me anyway. I'm locked up in prison. Right. So it would be like from Efraim Diveroli and Matthew Cox, or with Matthew Cox, or however you want to put it. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm filling stuff in. I'm making funny jokes. I'm saying stuff, but it still follows the basic timeline. But it also covers everything in that article. So what happens is, because it's very difficult for you to take an article and turn it into a complete movie without fabricating something. There's just not enough words there.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Right. So so this is what Ross is telling me, and they're paying me. You're paying me to do this. So they're paying me. I'm right. And when I say paying me, they're sending me money to buy true links so I can type on the computer. So they're not paying me. I'm not making money, but they're sending me money in order to be able to type it on the computer. So I was able to work on the computer all the time instead of handwrite, because it was much faster that way. So I write. And then eventually one day we're at a meeting and Ross says, Diveroli says, what if we can't beat them to the punch? What if we can't get our project done first? Ross says, well, it's not that hard. We'll sue him for theft of intellectual property. And I went, how? And he says, well, when there's competing projects, especially a project like this, he goes, it's not that hard to allege that there was, that they got a hold of the manuscript, or they stole the manuscript. And I'm like, but they didn't steal the manuscript. He goes, I understand that, but some of what they're going to come up with is definitely going to be covered in our manuscript. He said, and they're using his likeness. Like, he starts throwing out all these things that I already know don't really matter, because he's a public figure, because he's been arrested, because he's been in articles. So he doesn't have those rights anymore. But he starts saying all this stuff. And I was like, okay. And I'm kind of thinking, no big deal. It's none of my business. Like, this is between these two guys. I just need to finish this fucking thing. And what he ends up saying is, Diveroli says, Diveroli says, you think we can sue him successfully? And Ross goes, well, let me tell you something. He said, and I forget how many years ago it was, 10 years earlier. He said, about 10 years ago, he goes, did you ever see the reality TV show, The Contender? And it had a boxer in it, which was a famous boxer at the time. And I forget his name. Can you look up The Contender?
Yeah, I never saw that.
Yeah, it's a boxer. He's a famous boxer too. It's a reality TV show.
But about boxing.
About boxing. And it's a real boxer. It's like...
So, not Sylvester Stallone.
No.
The Contender TV series. Right there. See it? Go down. Yep, hit that. 05. Sugar Ray Leonard.
Sugar Ray Leonard?
Oh, I remember this show.
I don't think it was Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yeah, no, I remember Sugar Ray Leonard having some sort of show like this.
Was it Sugar Ray Leonard?
I think it was, dude. He's been on TV a bunch.
Well, we'll say Sugar Ray Leonard. Anyway, the point is this. So what happens is Ross says, listen, he said, I had a project called that I forget what he called it, right? That he had gone and he had an agent that he had told the agent about the project. And he said that he told the agent about it, but it never went anywhere. Well, then like a year later, The Contender came out. But the same agency also and this is a massive agency in LA. It's like one of the biggest ones, right? He said they also represented Sugar Ray Leonard, let's say. I think it was whoever it was. I forget who it was. It says Sugar Ray Leonard. That doesn't sound familiar. I thought it was somebody else. But anyway.
Either way, yeah.
So he says, yeah. He says, so he represented Sugar Ray Leonard. Okay. And he goes, and it came out. He said, so Ross ended up suing them, saying that the literary agent had brought the project to Sugar Ray Leonard, and then they did the project. And it was a very similar project. And they ended up settling with him for a fucking ton of money. A ton of money. And
so he had this road mapped.
So he's saying, that was a loose thing. He's like, your thing is huge. He's like, it's almost impossible, especially if they use your name, which they were going to. Your name, your likeness. We've got a book. Our book came out before your book. You have a little tiny article. You wrote this whole thing. So Diveroli says, listen to Ross. He's sitting there like, you're right. Diveroli loves the idea. And I'm sitting here thinking, I thought we were getting a book deal. Like, what are you guys doing? So Diveroli goes, listen, I got a cousin who lives in Los Angeles. This is how he said it. He's in like the industry, right? Like the film industry. He goes, well, he thinks he's in the film industry. He's actually a schmuck. And he starts laughing and he goes, but anyway, so he thinks he's in it. He goes, bro, he knows all kinds of people. He goes, I'll bet you he can help us with the manuscript. He goes, I bet he can get it to somebody at Warner. And I'm thinking, I don't really understand. So, and this probably when someone's listening to this, they still don't understand. So I didn't understand, and I'm there. I'm just thinking, write the book, get the book published. You get a piece of a book deal. Maybe these guys option it. I get a piece of the option. Maybe they made into a movie or a series. I get a piece of the series. Because let's face it, anything that's made that's turned into a film, series, whatever, is all based on some kind of a book. So I'm not even concerned about it, right? Well, I leave. Maybe a month later, I'm talking to Ross on the phone, and Ross says, you're not going to believe this. Turns out that Diveroli's cousin knows a guy that is a film that does documentaries, and he's partners with a guy named Shimmy Spear.
Shimmy Spear.
Shimmy Spira. Shimmy Spira. Shimmy Spira is the son of Steven Spira, one of the presidents of Warner Brothers Studio. And I'm like, okay. And I said, well, what does that mean? He goes, we're going to ask him if he'd like to see the manuscript. I said, oh, okay. So you think he'll talk to his father about it? Or he's like, well, no, it opens up possibilities. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, definitely. That sounds good. Right. He's like, yeah, no, definitely things are working out. I'm like, okay. So he has Shimmy sign an NDA to see the manuscript, just in case he wants to make it into a documentary.
Okay.
So he gives him him and his partner the manuscript. They read it. They talk to Ross a couple times on the phone. Eventually, should we make a doc? Do you think you can get a doc made? Do we think we can get a film made? Maybe a series on Netflix? What are you guys thinking? They ask around, and finally, Shimmy's partner is talking to Ross on the phone, and he says, Shimmy said that Warner Brothers is moving forward with the film. They're rewriting the script that they've written. They're rewriting it because Jonah Hill is going to play Diveroli. And Jonah Hill wants there to be more in the script about Diveroli. So they're rewriting it. And Ross says, how do you know this? And he says, oh, Shimmy, his father is Steven Spira. He's one of the presidents of Warner Brothers. He told him. And he goes, Shimmy, his father is the president of Warner Brothers? And he goes, yeah. He goes, why didn't you tell me that? And he goes, well, it wasn't my place to tell you. I mean, what does it matter? I never would have given you the manuscript if I'd known that you guys were connected to Warner Brothers. Shimmy certainly gave the manuscript to his father. And the guy's like, oh, and he goes, I can't believe you've done this. And I had you sign an NDA. And by the way, in the NDA, one of the things it talks about is like third parties. Don't give it to anybody. Is there any reason you shouldn't have this? Is there any reason that you could have a conflict of interest? Is there? So now Ross and Diveroli have a direct link knowing that Warner Brothers had seen the manuscript. Like they can now say, absolutely, we gave it to Shimmy. Shimmy surreptitiously obtained the manuscript for Warner Brothers, because that's what it says in the fucking in his lawsuit. Now, here's the funny thing about that. So they set up Warner Brothers. We just set up Warner Brothers. What is Warner Brothers going to do now? He's right. The way it looks in print, and he's got these phone calls with these guys. He's got it looks like, and they contacted him because Diveroli's cousin talked to them, and then they contacted Ross. So if Diveroli's cousin doesn't get on the stand and say, yeah, I told them to call him, he's friends with the guy anyway. I call him all the time.
Yeah.
So it really just looks like these guys reached out to him on behalf of probably Shimmy's father and asked to see the manuscript. Ross said, here's an NDA. Is there any conflict of interest? Do you have any reason that no. Boom, we got it. We gave it to my dad. They used it to rewrite the screenplay, which was being rewritten anyway because of Jonah Hill. Really looks bad. They set him up. Here's the funny thing about it is, during all of the proceedings, Warner Brothers not one time ever said they didn't see the manuscript. So the truth is, they probably did see the manuscript.
I don't see how they couldn't have, given all that.
Right.
Walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a fucking duck.
So regardless, here's what happens. But Ross is telling me this on the phone. Can you believe that? And I'm thinking, but before you even gave it to him, you knew he was the son of Steven Spira. You already knew that. But he's saying it to me it had been months.
Yeah, he's trying to have deniability.
Right, but it's first of all, you said it on a phone that's recorded. And two, now you're saying this again on the phone. But it's who are you talking to? I really think he forgot that he told me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We talked a lot and we back and forth. And I think he might have casually mentioned it and just forgot. Anyway, I was like, and I didn't even say anything, bro. I'm not going to get into an argument. I'm not going to say, what are you talking about, bro? I was like, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? He said, yeah, bro, we're suing him. And all I can think of is this guy was representing me on my book. He's not even pitching my book now, by the way. He was going to try and go to Simon & Schuster, and he had talked to Simon & Schuster by this point about Diveroli's book and my book. But now he's completely just discarded that. Not even interested in it. My book's been put on the back burner. Months and months and months have gone by.
Yeah, you're also and it's unfortunate, but you're sitting in prison. So
nothing I can do.
Yeah, you're so limited. You have no leverage.
Right. So I then Diveroli kind of disappears. Right. Diveroli, by the way, he had left by now. He left and went to Miami.
His sentence was only a couple of years, right?
Yeah, it was 6 years.
But he didn't do all 6, right?
No, he did 3 or 4.
And just for people, a lot of people have seen the movie War Dogs, but what's interesting about that case, Danny did an amazing podcast with David Packouz, the other guy. they like Efraim is clearly an awful guy. Like
Right.
that's covered. I mean, that guy's always going to commit some sort of crime. But I'm forgetting the details right now. I wish I could remember that podcast more fresh, but they kind of got a little fucked. Like they didn't do.
Oh no, the two of them, Packouz and Diveroli, definitely got screwed over.
Yeah, because they didn't. I'm not without looking at the laws here. They didn't really do anything that their competitors weren't doing as well. It just looked weird because they were two, sub 20-year-old guys pulling it off.
Yes. Yeah, it looked very odd. You're two 21, 22-year-old kids that are shipping, tens of millions of dollars of ammunition across the country and doing it well. The problem was that it was Chinese ammunition. Well, not all of it. Very, very, very little of it actually. But at some point,
some of it. Yeah.
Some point it ended up being Chinese ammunition.
That'll do it.
And because Diveroli reached out to the army and said, "Can I ship this?" and they said no, and he continued to ship it, he got in trouble. Had he said nothing and just done it, because he'd already been doing it.
Yeah.
And keep in mind too, they're using all the ammo. Like the army doesn't give a crap about this being Chinese ammunition. We need it. So they used it, and then they kind of semi-covered it up. Diveroli says that it wasn't covered up. He's like, we were repackaging it because it was in these heavy crates, and we packaged it in plastic bags because the fuel was so fucking expensive. We were already doing that before we even were told not to ship it at all. He's like, but they used all of that, and if we went to trial, they were going to say that we did this. So he really got screwed. Like, you can't arrest someone just because they're a scoundrel. So as a scoundrel, he is a scoundrel, but he didn't deserve to go to jail. Second thing he did was when they were both out on home confinement. They were both out on pretrial release, and they had like ankle monitors on or whatever. No, they didn't even have ankle monitors on. They were just on like probation, like while you're waiting to be sentenced. The ATF convinced Diveroli to leave the jurisdiction and then actually handed him a gun. So they say, hey.
Wait, what?
So the ATF said, listen, they end up having a manufacturer contact Diveroli. And Diveroli was going to be importing these things that were called like I forget the name of it, but I'm going to make up a name. Like, let's call it a mega pack, right? So it's basically like oh my God, a clip. It's a clip for like a 9mm that funnels bullets into the gun. So if you pull the trigger, it's like, it just starts firing, right?
Yeah.
Like and there's a name for it. It's like an alpha clip or a mega clip or something. Well, the patent had expired, and Diveroli had picked up the patent and had a South Korean South Korean manufacturer that was going to manufacture them. So there was Knight Industries went to Diveroli and said, "We're interested in doing this with you." And so he's excited, but really it was the ATF agent who'd gone to Diveroli, said that Knight will do this, and convinces Diveroli to leave the jurisdiction. He goes, "Look, we're going to test it. We're going to test the clip." Oh, I think it's called a beta clip.
Beta, B-E-T-A.
So he says, and all they wanted to do was like, we're going to manufacture it in South Korea. We just want you to stamp it, Knight, because Knight Industries is huge, right?
Oh, one of these?
Yes.
Son of a, whoa.
Yeah. It's a serious clip.
Yeah, I've never seen that before.
Yeah,
We'll put that in the corner of the screen.
You've actually seen it on James Bond. They used one on James Bond on the last movie.
Maybe, but I don't remember it.
Yeah. Well, he
That
didn't.
looks
Somebody
nuts.
was firing at it. It's insane, bro.
Wow.
Right. So, but Knight has agreed to put their stamp on it. But really, it's all bullshit. It's an ATF agent called him and said, "Look, I want to help you get this done." And he's like, "Okay." And he finds out, keep in mind, Diveroli's on drugs. He's all messed up. So he's susceptible to just not really asking too many questions.
What kind of drugs? Just like smoking
cocaine,
weed or
like coke, everything.
everything?
He's definitely got a drug issue at that time. So he ends up saying, let's go out there. Knight's ready to do it. They had a meeting. They said, we want to test it. If it tests great, we'll do it. Diveroli's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Let's do it. They go, they test it. They say, it's great. Why don't you come out? We'll fire. We're going to shoot off a couple thousand rounds. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have something to eat, and we're going to sign the contract. So Diveroli's like, yeah, bro, I can't come out. I can't do that. I can't bring a gun. I can't fire anything. He goes, don't worry about it. Just come out. Bring something. Come on, man. Bring something. He's like, no, you don't understand. I'm on probation. Like, he's very open about it. The guy says, he's been in the newspaper. Like, they've already had Senate hearings on him and everything. Like, he's just trying to stay out of prison. Like, they've got it negotiated down where they're going to get probation. I mean, they're going to get house arrest. But the ATF's not happy about it. This agent. So the agent says, just come out. Don't worry about it. Just come out. So Diveroli comes out.
Wait, what?
Diveroli comes out. They get there. They meet in a parking lot. And the agent says, bro, he goes, he opens his trunk. He said, hey, check out what I brought. I brought this. I brought that. He's, what'd you bring in? Diveroli goes, bro, I told you I can't bring anything. I'm not bringing anything. And Diveroli goes, okay.
This is horrible entrapment.
Oh, it's extreme entrapment.
This is crazy. I wish Jim was still here to hear this one.
So they hand him the guns. And at one point, the guy brings out all the guns, and so Diveroli said, I'm just standing there. And the guy takes a 9mm and slaps it right in his hand. And he said, I just naturally grabbed it. Like, I didn't want to drop it. What am I going to do, drop it? So I grab it, and I'm like, fuck, now I'm holding the gun. And I'm like, and he actually cocks the gun.
Oh,
and he goes through the whole
man.
thing. He cocks it. Well, it's empty. He cocks it. He does the whole check thing. Boom, 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 boom. He's, yeah, it's a nice piece, bro. And he goes, yeah, man. He said, hey, do me a favor. And Diveroli actually says, he goes, once a gun runner, always a gun runner. And he kind of jokes around with the guy, and the guy's like, right.
There's the title.
Yeah. And then he takes the gun, puts it down, and says, hey, look, man, I brought all the weapons. Can you at least go buy the ammo? There's a Walmart up the street. He goes, yeah, I'll go buy the ammo. So he even tells him, I can't buy it, but I'll have one of my guys buy it. And Diveroli thinking, I'm okay if I don't buy it.
Well, that wasn't smart.
So the guy, he and his buddy drive down the street. His employee drives down the street. He gives him $1,000 and says, go buy $1,000. Well, that's just direction. You just bought the money.
Yes.
You just bought it. He buys
It's like
it.
saying, go kill that guy. No, I didn't have anything to do with it.
Right. He buys the ammo. They throw it back in the trunk. They're driving back to the parking lot. Boom, they get pulled over. They get yanked out of the car. They get arrested. That's it. So as a result of that, he had a plea agreement that is now validated. So instead of getting house arrest, he gets 6 years.
Whew.
Right. So
And then he
Packouz-
meets Matthew B. Cox.
Right. He meets me in prison. I write the book, but he gets out. He goes to Miami, and then after a year, he gets out. So Diveroli left prison, never talked to me again. When he left, by the way, he gave me a big bear hug, tears in his eyes, and said, you know me better than my own family.
Tears in his eyes?
Tears in his eyes. And I was thinking, what's going on? Like, he's really psycho. Like, and he goes, I want to let you know something, bro. And keep in mind, I didn't have my sentence hadn't been cut yet. So my out date is 2030. He goes, I'm going to be here for you. I don't fuck my friends. I'm going to be here for you. He said, and I'm going to be standing at the gate when you get out of here. And I said, I hope so, bro. I hope so. And he said, oh, you watch. Gives me a big bear hug. Never talk to that cocksucker again.
Until the strip club meeting after the lawsuit.
So he leaves.
You had to sue him to talk to him.
I'm talking to, all I'm doing is talking to the literary agent, who, by the way, who was my literary agent representing me on my book that I was finishing up, that has now put my book to the side to go for Diveroli's book. And mine's just a side note and has been postponed for a year now. At this point, the literary agent stops talking to me. And I'm like,
something's going. Yeah.
I mean, well, and you know what the truth is? It's like they as far as I knew, they didn't have a book deal. Like, they don't have a book deal. They're shopping this thing. They're all he could talk about is suing. And what's funny is I wrote an email. I wrote a letter to Diveroli, and I wrote an email to Ross.
What year are we in now? Because the movie came out, I want to say 2016. Does that sound right?
This is probably
2016, right?
14?
So the movie's not out yet.
50, maybe 50. When does the movie come out?
2016.
Okay. So this is probably, let's say 14 or 15.
Okay.
And so I sent Diveroli a letter that said, hey, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, you guys are running around trying to sue Warner Brothers for something that they didn't do. They haven't done anything wrong. You need to be focused on getting a book deal. I write an email to Ross saying the same type of thing. I said, first of all, please don't mention to me anything about like the lawsuit of Diveroli anymore. I said, I'm so disgusted by the fact that my project has been thrown to the side. Like, he had all kinds of big promises to me. I said, because now you and Diveroli have decided to start suing. And, you feel like suing is more lucrative than actually making an attempt to get a book deal and get your own deal. Like, I'd rather steal from you than do the work myself, right? And listen, by this point, like, I've had an epiphany, right? Like, I'm not going to be involved in any fraud. I've got a legitimate thing going on. I want to write stories. I want to get out. I want to do a podcast. I want to publish books. I want to get movies made. I want to option stories. That's what I want to do. And you've taken that and perverted it into a scam. You're now suing. You set somebody up with a manuscript that he never wanted, and you knew damn well you tried to get it to him. You made an extreme effort to get it in this guy's hands so you could say Warner Brothers used it. Whether they did or not, I don't know.
Pretty bold of them to try to scam an ex-scammer. I mean, shit.
Well, here's the thing. I've got my outdate's 2030.
Yeah, but they're doing it as if you're not going to, like, it seems to me from the outside, from the way you're saying it, as if you're not going to pick up on it.
But what can I do?
You can't do much, but I'm saying, like, they're playing it like you're not, you know what I mean?
First of all, Diveroli absolutely would tell you, oh, dude's in prison. He can't do shit. Like, you don't understand, Ross.
Yeah.
He cannot do anything. Nobody helps this guy. He's got an 80-year-old mother. He's got, like, his dad's dead. His mother's in her 80s. His ex-wife who talks to him on the phone, she's got 3 or 4 kids. She can't help him. Like, his sister doesn't want to help. Nobody's going to help this guy. Nothing he can do. So, okay, that's fine. So I'm sitting there, and so they basically just stopped talking to me. So I'm sitting there one day, and do you know what Miami Drive is? It's a magazine. It's like a big glossy magazine in Miami. You ever heard of that, Miami Drive? No. So it's a celebrity Miami magazine.
Okay.
Oh, Ocean Drive. I'm sorry. It's called Ocean Drive.
It's named after the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Ocean Drive.
I don't know if I've seen that before.
Yeah, it's a huge magazine too, right?
Interesting.
So here's what's funny. One day I'm sitting there with Pete, my buddy Pete. We're sitting at this area that they call Stonehenge, right? It's got a bunch of benches around and it's all concrete. Yeah, it's in a big circle. So we're sitting there one day, and all of a sudden this guy comes up and he goes, "Hey, Cox," and I go, "What's up?" I said, "Yeah, what's up?" His name's Caroni. Caroni comes up, he goes, "Hey, Cox," and I go, "What's up?" Is you making any money on that Diveroli book? And I went, "No, they haven't published it yet." I said, "They never found a publisher." And he goes, "What?
Fuck you talking about?"
And he drops Ocean's Drive down, and there's a picture of Diveroli holding the book with about 50 or 60 books piled up behind it. My name very clear on the book.
Your name's on it.
Of course, my book. It's Efraim Diveroli and Matt Cox. And he's at the Miami Book Fair signing books. And I went, what the fuck? I jump up. I'm flipped out. I can't fucking believe it. I call Ross. Ross answers the phone. What's going? Hey, I don't scream at you. I'm not in a position to be like, "You piece of shit."
Yeah.
What am I gonna do? You have to be like, "Hey, bro, what's going on? Oh, hey, what's going on? How's it going? Oh, yeah.
Did you publish that book?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna send you one. I'll send you one. Okay.
Why is my name? Well, here's the thing.
No, my name's on it.
They put your name on it, so you now have something to point to. Like, that's me.
But he didn't put based on, which really bothered me. And not only that, you know what he played up? The real story from the real war dog, the true story, And I'm thinking, there's a good chunk of that book that's fabricated. Not only that, this guy is like, I get it if you want to say, okay, well, I kind of made him, look, the real story, and he makes a big effort about the real this and the real that.
Wow.
Isn't it funny too? Look, you pull it up and look what's right above it. War dogs.
Yep. Why does it say paperback $1,600?
Because that's what Diveroli sells them for.
Come on.
He's got signed copies. You can't get it anywhere else.
And then it's Kindle. Kindle or that.
Yeah, it's Kindle for $9 or yeah. Oh yeah,
I mean, I read on Kindle, so
well,
easy enough.
my thing is, I'll bet you if you send him $1,600, you only got a 50% chance of getting a book. So he so
what'd you do? Because you're sitting in prison.
I mean, I talked to Pete. Pete goes and he goes, I'm going to check this out. So Pete goes and comes back and he says, I had my mom pull the docket sheet and he said they're suing. They filed a
against Warner Brothers. Yeah,
Warner, Todd, Phil, everybody across the board. And so, what happens is we go to Amodeo.
Of course, the Godfather.
We go to
the schizo father.
We go to the Godfather, and he says, "Well, I'm not going to let this happen. This is just ridiculous.
I'll have Efraim Diveroli bowing down before me."
Exactly. So he, directs Pete, my buddy Pete, to help write this, thing, and the judge. They talked to the judge a bunch of times. So they figure out a strategy, and then we sue. We sue Warner Brothers. We actually don't sue Warner Brothers. We file what's called an intervention. Like we try and intervene in their lawsuit because they're already suing Warner, and we're intervening, saying, "Well, we want our interest to be protected." And I never allege. I just kind of allege that I'm the true owner of the book. So we go back and forth over the next few months. And they don't here's the thing about Diveroli. Like he would rather spend, $500,000 to try and fuck you out of 50. Like he could have come to me and said, "I'll give you 50 grand." He could have come to me and give me 20 grand. $20,000 to me when I walked out of prison would have been a game changer.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think he's like that?
It's some kind of mental issue. Like you understand, and it's funny too because Packouz will say the same thing. He genuinely didn't feel good about a deal unless he felt like you were getting screwed over.
So it was more important that you lost.
Yes,
that's bizarre.
It is bizarre. It's a personality defect, absolutely. And he's a funny guy. Like there were times like he was really funny. He had those moments.
Does he laugh like Jonah Hill?
No,
I was gonna say
no. They don't. That's complete fabricated.
Yeah, it was good though.
So what's funny about that laugh? Well, what's funny about Jonah Hill is Jonah Hill says he reached out to Diveroli several times and he just wouldn't respond and he just wasn't interested. He never reached out to Diveroli one time.
Jonah Hill said he reached out to him?
He says it multiple times. I tried to reach out to him.
How do we know he didn't try to reach out to him?
I mean, Diveroli and Ross were like, he's never reached out. And Diveroli would have said, yeah, he wrote me. He would have told him. He just didn't.
You sure?
I mean, I feel pretty confident that's true.
Okay.
Like Ross, at the very least. Keep in mind too that Jonah Hill, Miles Teller, Todd Phillips, there's video of all of them saying, what I like about this story is it's the true story. It's the real story. This really happened. And I'll get to that. You'll see why that's such a weird thing to say. So we're suing back and forth. Like we're suing or we're filing motions back and forth. And I'm sitting there like if this guy had come to me and offered me 20 grand, but in his mind, he's getting out in 2030. I don't have to fucking even deal with this. I can wear this guy down. What Diveroli knows is this, is that if at some point we get to a point where the judge says we have to have a hearing, I can't go.
Yeah.
It's over. It's nearly impossible to fight a case from inside, a civil case from inside of a federal prison. They don't want to release you. It's up to the warden. Wardens don't release you. They don't let you go. They don't pay for you to go. They don't, nothing. Across the board, I'm not going. And he knows that. I just have to get to a point. If we get to that point, it's over. He can't show up. It's a completely and keep in mind too, the judge doesn't want to deal with this. No judge wants to deal with this. This guy's in prison. This is a pain in the ass. Yeah. He's doing it pro se.
Yeah.
Didn't even have a lawyer.
Yeah.
So we go back and forth. Well, at one point, I'm telling Ross, this was before we had filed. I asked him multiple times, come see me, because I'm going to do something that's going to be a real problem for you. It is imperative that you come to see me. I am telling you, this is absolutely important. And I was going to just explain to him, you need to include me in the lawsuit, or you need to give me a settlement. I'll take 20 grand. Like, I'll take something. And, but he never does. He says he's going to a couple times, and he'll try and he'll this, and he just doesn't, because he knows he doesn't matter. He doesn't want to deal with me anymore. He's got what he wants. And so anyway, we file the lawsuit. He's furious. It goes back and forth. Bottom line is we finally get to a point where Pete's like, I don't know, we don't know what else to do. And at that point, the movie comes out. And the movie is vastly, keep in mind, the whole time, their lawsuit was filed before the movie came out. And so it's been shot, it just hasn't been released. So it's not changing. So you're good. This is what it is. It's filed for release. They're releasing it no matter what. So they come out and say, boom. Shimmy gave it to his father. The whole thing, they lay it out solid. Then they lay out that it's all been stolen. Everything was stolen.
What do you mean?
That they stole the manuscript, and they used the manuscript to write the story. That they stole the
I missed you for a second. I thought you were talking about the other guys. Go ahead.
No. They stole it. That he did not use the article in the Rolling Stone. That it didn't have enough, and Jonah Hill wasn't happy. So because Jonah Hill wasn't happy and wanted them to rewrite the article, the screenplay, they had to use the manuscript because it had more material, and it had more that Packouz didn't know. And their hope was that when the movie came out, some of the scenes they would be able to use. They'd be able to say that was taken from the manuscript, because a lot of them are overlapping scenes, or expanded, or funny, or so some of them are going to be similar. And so it comes out, and they look at it, and they watch it, and they realize it's nothing like the book. Not only is it nothing like the book, it's nothing like the article. The only similarities is two stoner kids started selling arms or ammunition to the federal government, and it ended up being Chinese, and they got in trouble, and they went to jail. That's it. The similarity, like all the things that people watch that movie and go, man, that was great. I love it when they grab Packouz and they stick the gun to his head. They bring him in the square and they set the gun in his head, and they're going to shoot him. And that never happened. Well, I love it when the guy's real name is Toomey, but whatever his name is in the movie, the one played by Bradley Cooper. I love how at the end of the movie, he gave them all that money. He never gave them any money. I loved it how they got matching Porsches, and they never drove matching Porsches. I love it when Packouz gets the girl and he's got the penthouse. He never had a penthouse. He never not only had a penthouse, he had a shitty fucking apartment.
I mean, this is what Hollywood does, though. They shimmy everything.
I love it when Diveroli, those drug dealers rip him off, and he pulls the gun out and shoots the gun. That never happened. I love it. Like, I can go on and on and on. Like 90% of the movie's gone. It is fictitious. I love it when they drive through the triangle of death and they're being shot at. Diveroli never went to Iraq. There was no triangle of death. I love it when
it looks good in the movie.
Right. See what I'm saying? Let's go on and on. None of it. There were two stoner kids that were selling drugs. That's it. So,
selling weapons.
No, they were selling. They did sell weapons, but mostly it was ammunition.
Right.
Did I say drugs?
Yeah, you said drugs.
I'm sorry, man. It's getting late.
No, it's all good.
That we're selling weapons and mostly ammunition is what it's really about. Ammunition.
Right.
So
things used on the field of battle.
Right. So what ends up happening is Ross's whole website, or his whole thing is like, the case is fucked, right? He's like, damn, it's fucked. Like, I'm fucked because we have alleged that they stole it and used our material, and they didn't use our material. They didn't just use our material. They didn't use they didn't use the material in Rolling Stones magazine. So then Ross is a sharp guy. He kicks back and he goes, the Lanham Act. The Lanham Act says that you are not allowed to advertise a product if you know the product is false. You cannot falsely advertise something to make sales. And they absolutely pushed that movie as the true story, the real story.
Yes.
This really happened. Jonah Hill says, what I love about this movie is these two guys are real guys and these things really happened. Todd Phillips, what's great about that is we took as much as we could directly from the article. What? And we took it, and it's amazing because it really happened. Miles Davis, same thing. Listen, it's over and over. Bradley Cooper. What's great about this movie is that these are real guys that this happened to. These are real things that happen. You could pull all that off of YouTube. All these guys are saying it. It's hilarious. So they say all of that knowing that you fabricated it. Why did you fabricate it? Because you knew there was a lawsuit. You knew that Shimmy had seen the book. You knew you'd seen it, and you knew Diveroli was going to sue, so you completely fabricated the movie. So those lawyers at Warner Brothers are not idiots. But neither is Ross. So Ross says, look, Lanham Act. Not only did they falsely advertise the movie, they damaged our ability for us to promote and sell our book, which is the true story.
Yes.
If it was true. Is the book true?
But on their end, they're only looking out for their own pockets. But technically, they're right. Forget whether their story's true or not. They're right about what Warner Brothers is doing.
Yes, yeah. Warner Brothers damaged their ability to market their product by putting out a fake narrative and saying it's true. So it gets complicated, right?
Yes.
But
how much did they sue them for?
Like 100 and something. They basically said they wanted all the profit, which ended up being like $200 million. So yeah. So they're suing for, it wasn't 200 million then, it was like 140 million. Now it's over 200 million. So they're suing. They want all this stuff. They're suing, and they keep pushing that our book is the real story. It's the real story. It's the real story. And I'm saying, what's going on, fellas? What about me? And they're saying, Mr. Cox doesn't have a leg to stand on. It's not, he doesn't own the copyright. He is just a work for hire. He's in prison. He's a con man. And so I go and I take Stranger Danger and I take the pages from Stranger Danger and I compare and look, pages 112 through 120. Look, and here is where it came from, Stranger Danger. And I only do maybe 6 or 8 comparisons, and I have them, and I tell Pete. Pete's like, I'm like, what are we gonna do? He's like, I don't know. Like they're gonna wear us down. He's like, the only thing we can do is we can tell Warner Brothers about what's happening.
Ooh.
And he goes, if we tell Warner Brothers, we're shooting ourselves in the foot, because he's like, we can still try and file under the Lanham Act, but we really are shooting ourselves in the foot. He's like, because we have the same argument that they have, and right now it's a good argument, but we'll be shooting ourselves in the foot. Well, no, we don't have the Lanham Act. He's like, we have nothing. I'm sorry. We basically have nothing, because the truth of the matter is, the moment we say, look, the book part of now I'm of course making it sound like the whole book's fabricated, practically the whole book. The truth is, it's not that much, but
there's some things.
There are some things, and it's certainly not what they're saying. And Diveroli knows it's fake, because he wrote the book, right? So he knows these are lies. So he's saying it's absolutely 100% true.
It's crazy, though, that book was out before the movie came out, long before, because I think the movie came out later that year. I might be wrong about that.
No, the book was out.
Book was out January 2016. Right. So it's crazy that these guys on the press tour were saying everything's true when there's literally a book that can point to, written by the guy, that shows entirely different stories that weren't told. So and then you can go to the Rolling Stone article that's open source, and you can see a lot of the stuff in the movie's not from there. That doesn't.
Yeah, but you understand that this is Hollywood, and they know that people are sheep.
Yeah,
they know they can lie. They can look at you straight in the face and lie. And if they say it enough, if
You'll believe it. Yeah.
Right. I think it was Hitler who said, like, he was a big believer in the big lie, right? It was him or Goebbels, who basically said if you say something, no matter how outrageous,
Repetition,
you
yeah.
say it repeatedly enough and loud enough, eventually it will be true. And if you win, nobody will ever ask you if it's true.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Just like, and similar,
right.
similar psychological thing.
Right.
You hurt a lot of people.
Yes, exactly.
What? You hurt a lot of people. You keep saying, and you're like, okay, I guess I did.
Eventually breaks me down. I'm like, all right. So, yeah. So what happens is, so Pete's like, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm thinking it's over. And I'm like, you know what? Like, and my fear is, so that, by the way, they schedule they end up scheduling a mediation. So Warner Brothers is saying we want to mediate with Ross and Diveroli. They want to settle. And Pete's like, I don't know what to do. Like, what are we going to do? And we go to Frank, and Frank is like, we tell Frank what we're going to do, and he's like, if you want to do that, that's fine. Keep in mind, I've got a ton of time left. Like, it's a bad spot. So he says it's up to you guys, and then we make the decision that we're going to go ahead and file a motion where we say that I'm the actual owner of the book and that most of the book has been fabricated and that they don't have a prayer. We file that just before the the day before the mediation, it gets filed. They cancel the mediation because Warner Brothers, and within a month or so, Warner Brothers files something that says, we believe that Cox may be the real owner of the manuscript. We believe that it's fabricated. We want to depose Cox.
So now they want to use you to get out of there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this goes back and forth several times. And Pete, I remember Pete's like, man, they're trying to depose me. They're trying to get a discovery from me. And so Pete says, you know what we ought to do? We ought to get Diveroli's lawyer fired. We should just get his lawyer taken off the case. That'll give us some time. Because by that point, I'd gotten my sentence reduced once. So now we already know that I'm working on another one. He's like, we need to drag this out until we can get you out of prison. He goes, a good way to do that is get his lawyer fired. I go, how do we do that? And he goes, let's take examples from the two books, send it to his lawyer. He goes, because I'm pretty sure that Diveroli and Ross have lied to their lawyers. And once their lawyer sees that they've lied to them, they have to recuse themselves. They can't continue to say that these guys stole and that it's the real story and it's completely true if they know for a fact it's not true. Keep in mind, the Stranger Danger manuscript that I have was printed out on a printer at Coleman, and every page has my full name and date and the timestamp and everything. Whoa. I have no access to a regular printer. I can't cut and paste it. I can't do anything. I'm in prison.
Even with the fine arts degree.
Nothing I can do.
Can't use it in there.
And Diveroli, when he sees it, knows it was printed. And every staff member would say, absolutely, there's no way for him to alter that. It's printed. And it's beat to shit. So we make the copies. We send it to his lawyer. Boom. The next day, he's out. He quits. He gets another lawyer. I forget how we got the second lawyer fired. We get 2 lawyers fired.
Over how long? Like a year?
Yeah, within a year. Okay. Within about 6 months, really. He gets another lawyer. Boom, we get him fired. Then Diveroli files a lawsuit against like all kinds of people, like Apple and all these places that have like they're streaming it. He sues all of them. So we then notify all of them what's happening. This guy, by the way, at this point, I'm now on the email system with Diveroli's new lawyer, and he's begging to come see me so he can make a settlement, an offer.
I'll bet.
And I'm just trying to get out of prison at this point. Like, I want to get out so I can get a lawyer and sue. So we're going back and forth. So they schedule another mediation. They go to the mediation. There's nothing we can do about it. They have the mediation. We don't really know what happened. The next day, or I'm sorry, not the next day. Yeah, the day after that. Day after the meeting. No, it was the next day. The next day. Next day, I get an email from my niece, and she says, and keep in mind, Ross, I knew Ross and got Ross as a literary agent because he was friends with my brother-in-law, who's a lawyer, who had represented Ross at one point. And so and my niece works at the law firm. So does my brother. My brother, not my brother-in-law, but my brother-in-law and my brother. So my niece sends me an email and says, Uncle Matt, Uncle Mark my brother wanted to let you know Ross Reback had a heart attack last night. We don't know much, but he wanted to let you know that he had a heart attack and he died. So about a couple days later, we find out that maybe a week later, we find out that Diveroli and Warner Brothers both withdraw their lawsuits and close it out. That's it. It's over. It's done. We go to Frank and say, Frank, they withdrew their lawsuit. They didn't, and Frank looks at it and Frank goes, oh, they settled. And we go, settled? How would they have settled?
Well, that's what they do. You pull the lawsuit. It means
and
there's an out-of-court settle.
Right.
Yeah.
Out-of-court settlement.
Which is kind of a fucked up thing because then it can make it look like you lost in the future depending on which side you're on,
so
you know?
He says that he's like, they're doing that so you don't know that there's a settlement. So you think that Ross died and that's it. They settled. Ross died and the Diveroli dropped the lawsuit. So I wait about a week and I call my sister and I say, hey, Helen, what's going on? And she goes, what's going on? And I said, how are you doing? Because I needed to serve everybody in the lawsuit. I was going to refile my lawsuit. And I was going to refile against Diveroli and Warner to say I knew there was a settlement. You know what I'm saying? Like, I forget what we were going to say. I don't know, because Frank and Pete were handling that. So whatever it was, I needed a process server. So I call Helen and say, hey, I need a process server. She goes, okay, I'll get you one. I said, okay, cool. She goes, I'll get you the name of it. I said, okay, cool. And she said, hey, I said, hey, did you ever find out what happened with Ross? She goes, yeah, he died of a heart attack. I said, oh, okay. And she went, yeah. She said, we went to the funeral. I said, you did? She goes, yeah. And I went, oh, how was that? And she said, it was good. It was good. She said, the nice thing, we talked to his wife, and she said it was really, really nice because, keep in mind, we don't know if there's a lawsuit. Like, they're saying it, like, we think they settled. I'm sorry, we don't know if there's a settlement. We think they settled, but we don't really know. And so my sister says, his wife said, he had a really good day that day. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, he had like a business deal, like a mediation set up, and he ended up getting a really big settlement from a company out in California. And they settled the case, and he got a really big settlement. And so, he went to bed that night feeling really good, and he had a really good last day. So that was nice. That was nice.
Really big company in California, huh?
Thank you, Helen. Now, keep in mind, she knows what's going on, and I was like, thank you. She goes, okay. And all right, bye. Hang up the phone. I go out and I tell Frank, Pete. And they're like, what? And Frank's like, yep, I know it. Mm-hmm. I know it. So by this point, I think I got my sentence reduced again. And now they're just trying to delay. And so we're just delaying as long as we can to try and get me out of jail. Diveroli ends up getting another lawyer, and I end up getting out of prison and going to halfway house. Like, we literally, like, we're desperately fighting to try and get this thing delayed, and we're going back and forth with the judge, with everybody. They want to depose me. They want to, and then finally, to really throw a monkey wrench in there, we file the full Stranger Danger manuscript. Or did we just file I want to say, now that I think about it, I think we filed a bunch of just excerpts. You have to think these excerpts were like, some were just over the top. Like, I mean, I literally had pulled like 3 pages here, a paragraph here, and rewritten it slightly, but not much. And I mean, there's no way. And Diveroli looks so bad in the whole thing. Like, he looks bad. Like, what can he say? Everything he's been saying is a blatant lie now.
Yeah, he's fucked.
Right. So we're now trying to sue him because we're now trying to say, you owe me money. We know you got a settlement. By the way, initially they're not saying really anything, but now that we refile the lawsuit, they now are admitting they got there's a lawsuit, there's a settlement, but we need to figure out a way to work this out. They're trying to come see me. I don't want to see them. I want to get out and get a lawyer. So I get out. Eventually I get out. I go to the halfway house. And you imagine poor Diveroli, he never thought I was getting out of prison. So I get out of prison, and I don't have Frank Amodeo. I don't have Pete to help me. I'm sitting in the prison. I'm working a job at a gym, and I end up calling to try and find a lawyer. I can't find a lawyer. You know how hard it is to get a property, an intellectual property attorney.
Is this the guy in Philly you ended up getting? Yeah.
So I end up getting this guy in Philly I talk to him, but he doesn't represent me. AJ, his one of his associates represents me.
Got it.
But they're like together, right?
He's in like media.
Yes.
Yeah. So
they come down, they file a couple lawsuits. We end up going to Miami. We end up having a mediation in Brickell. And that's the first time I saw Diveroli.
Now, what did he say when you first saw him? Did he even talk to you, or is this just all?
Yeah, he walks in, he shakes my hand. He goes, Matt, what's up? What's up? How's it going? He was 45 minutes late.
Of course he was.
We sit down, we go back and forth. They leave the room. You know how the mediation goes. And we go back and forth. This went on for an hour or two. And after a couple hours, it just didn't go anywhere. So, we leave. I couldn't tell you if it went anywhere anyway. I signed a confidentiality agreement. You can't talk about the mediation, what happened. But we went back and forth. Nothing happened. We leave. We go down. We end up getting something to eat on the Miami Beach, at that strip. We get something to eat. It's like I go see a friend of mine from prison, hang out with him, talk to him, say how's it going, check on him, and then I'm leaving. It's like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I'm leaving. I'm leaving Miami, and I get a phone call from the lawyer AJ, and he says, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm leaving Miami. I'm getting on the interstate. I'm about 20 minutes outside of from where we're. Turn around." What? Turn around. You got to meet us at the Pink Pony. I said, no. I'm not doing that. That's a strip club.
I know where this is going.
No, I'm telling you, he said Diveroli's lawyer just called. He said he wants to make a deal. Meet us at the Pink Pony.
It's the most perfect ending to this.
Bro, are you serious with this, man? Don't fuck with me. I said, I got a 4.5 hour drive all the way home. Like, I'm exhausted already. Keep in mind, too, I had to leave at like 4 a.m. to get there. I've been going all day.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. Turn around. Okay, so I turn around, I go back. It takes me, 30, 45 minutes to get there. I get there. By the time I get there, the lawyer that I initially called, him and AJ, is Francis and AJ. Francis is drunk. Francis has got girls. He's making it rain money. He's slapping them. He's got 2 or 3 strippers around him. Diveroli still isn't there. I get there. We wait about an hour and a half. So now it's like 10 o'clock, 10:30. Diveroli and his lawyer show up. They show up. By the time they show up, AJ is dragging Francis out of the bar, and they're walking him to like their car or a cab or something, and they drive up. They leave. And he says, AJ's like, don't talk to him. It's all right. And what's so funny is during the mediation, Diveroli kept saying, can I talk to, like, the mediator was like, look, he wants to talk to Matt alone. Diveroli wants to talk to Matt alone without the lawyers. He said they can work it out together. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. And
why'd you think that wasn't going to happen?
Well, first of all, and Francis said, you know why he wants to do that, right? And I said, why? He's going to tell you to fire us, and he'll give you cash. like you're on probation. He'll just give you cash, get rid of us. He said, because he knows if you fire us, he doesn't have to do anything because he knows we will not come back. So if he doesn't give you anything, he knows you're screwed. If you say, hey, wait a minute, I fired you, but he was going to give me money and never did, like, we're not going to represent you. So he's trying to get rid of us. And I went, and I said, yeah, I don't want to see him. I have nothing to say to this guy anyway. Keep in mind, I don't care. I didn't care about the money at this point. I'm out of prison. I'm staying. I'm living. I'm not even in the halfway house anymore. Now I'm staying at someone's spare room by this point. Like, I don't care. I couldn't even drive. The vehicle I had was such a piece of shit. I couldn't even drive it to Miami. I had to borrow my mother's car. So when they leave, Diveroli says, I get up to leave. He goes, oh, just let me talk to you. Just let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. I'm like, what? So we sit down, and I go, what's up? He's like, man, how's it going? And I go, man, cut the fucking shit. We're not friends, bro. I said, what do you want? And he goes, I want to work this out with you. I said, okay.
Yeah, no shit.
And I said, okay. I said, you know, what's funny is I said, you could have come and given me 20 or 30 grand in prison. And he goes, do you have any idea how much money you've cost me? And I can't say how much money I've cost you. Damn. The amount of money that my lawsuit cost Warner Brothers. And like he was like, and I knew it was expensive. And Frank had the estimates, and they all had about the same estimates. And I always thought Frank was like exaggerating, but it's insane how much money they had cost. And I know,
because again, they're trying to push you away, so they're spending the money on doing that. Yeah.
And Diveroli's fighting me with and he's got private lawyers, and it's insane.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And so we're going back and forth. And we know Diveroli has money sitting somewhere waiting for him, but he can't get to it until he settles with me. So Warner Brothers settled with him and put money here and said, you don't get that money till you settle with Cox. So we're going back and forth. And
so he's lost all leverage now. A lot of it.
Yes and no. Like, I also can't fight forever. And these guys, although they're representing me on contingency, they're not going to do that forever. They're not going to trial.
Right.
They've just spent how much money to fly out here, to stay in a nice hotel, to, you know. So Diveroli and I go back and forth, and we start arguing, just back and forth. And he's like, you have no idea how much money you cost me. And I'm like, you're just a piece of shit. I said, let me explain something to you. I said, and he, you know, I said, you could have given me 20 grand. That would have changed my fucking life getting out of prison. I said, you gave me that big bear hug, and your eyes filled up with tears. I said, you're pathetic, bro. Like, I just leaned into him, right? And he's like, bro, let's just put this behind us, bro. Like, we could be friends again. Like, I miss talking to you. I just stop it. I said, listen to me. I said, I know you're a fucking psychopath. Do you understand that? I know that. So I said, you can lie and spin your story to all your friends and all these fucking people and your family and everybody that thinks you're a normal person, but I know you're a scumbag. I said, so don't try and sell me. We're friends. We were never friends. You don't have friends. People are like, you don't have friends.
How do you react to this?
I mean, you know, what do you say when someone tells you the truth? You don't like it, but it's true.
Yeah, but could you see that he?
Oh, he knew.
Yeah.
You also have to understand that I'm not going to say something to him that's going to make him go, wow. There's no connection. So if you're thinking I'm going to say something to him that's going to make him connect, it's not. It's not there. So I can say whatever. So I'm just spitting the truth. And I said, let me, and he goes, man, what are you getting so upset about? This isn't personal. I said, no, don't you get it? It is personal. That's what you don't understand. I said, I wanted to write a true crime book about your life, and you and Ross perverted it. You asked me to fabricate it and pervert it and get it out there. I said, I did because I was in such a bad position. I was desperate to be a part of this. And you two fucking pieces of garbage perverted this so that you could sue Warner Brothers for something that they didn't even do. You took what I thought was helping me start over my life, and you turned it into a fucking scam. I said, you scam these people out of fucking tons of money. Like, I can't even say how much money it is, but it's fucking ridiculous how much money he got. So you spent tons of money. You got tons of money on them. And he goes, well, you don't know, you don't understand. I said, no, let me explain. I said, I do understand. I said, let me explain to you how. I said, I'm gonna let you know how you know it's not personal, how it is personal for me. And he goes, he looked at me. I said, here's the thing. I said, I live in someone's spare room right now. I said, my car is such a piece of garbage. I had to borrow my mother's car to drive the 4.5 hours here because my car would not make it here and back. I said, I'm paying $600 a month to stay in someone's spare room, you know? I said, but you know what I get to do? I get to write every day. I get to paint. I have friends. I go through this whole thing. Like I've got all of these things. I said, and the money doesn't mean anything to me. I don't even care about the money. I said, here's where I'm at. And he said, these guys you're not paying these guys? I said, no, they're on contingency. I said, let me explain something. I said, this is where I'm at. I'm willing to spend every last fucking dime that these fuckers have to make sure you get as little as possible. I said, that's where I'm at. So I don't give a fuck. I said, I just want to make sure you get as little as possible. That's all I care about. That's it. I said, I'm not going to get anything.
You're trying to beat him in his own game.
Listen,
now.
And it was true. Like, I didn't care about that. At this point, I want this to end, but I want to make sure he gets as little as possible. Like I was ready to give everything to Francis and AJ. I'm ready to just hand them everything. They've already blown a ton of money. Mm-hmm. Like I'm ready to give whatever I get to them. Like I really just don't give a shit. Like luckily, that's not what they did. Like they could have, but they didn't. So he immediately throws out a number. And then I throw out a number, and he throws out a number, and I throw out a number, and we go back and forth, and we end up coming up with he ends up saying something that was just ridiculous. Like, and I stood up, I said, "All right, we're done." I started walking, and he blurts out a number. And I turn around, I said, I'll call AJ and Francis tomorrow. I said, I'll have them call you. He said, "We good?" I said, "We'll see what they say," and I walk off. So they end up like 2 days later, they get back to where they're from, which is. Where is it?
Media, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. They call me and they're like, "Hey, so what happened?" Actually, I think they might have still been in Miami. And they go, "Hey, what happened when we?"
It was the
next day. It was the next day. It was the next day, I think, because I think they were still in Miami. And they were like, "Hey, what happened?" And I tell them, "Oh, this is what happened. I told them this, and I told them that, and I told them this, and I told them that." I said, and then I told them, I said, "I'm willing to spend every last fucking dime of Francis's money to make sure you get as little as possible." And they burst out laughing. He's like, "I fucking love that shit, bro. That is hilarious." I said, and then he came up with this. This is the amount we came up with. And he goes, "Okay, let me call his lawyer and we'll see." He's, "Are you good?" I said, I'm good. And so, we went back and forth, and, they wrote up a contract 4 different ways, and we signed the contract, and that was it.
Wow.
So it was over.
That's a full saga right there, man. I think Alessi here's got to hit the road. I was just looking at the time. It got late. He's been a fucking trooper all day, killing it. So I want to get him out of here. You've been on fire too, Matt. But this was awesome. Lived up to expectations as always. You got a real gift on the mic, man. But your life has been extremely interesting. You've written a lot of books about a lot of cool people you've come into contact with. You wrote your own book, Shark in the Housing Market, right?
No.
What's it called?
Shark in the Housing Pool.
Shark in the Housing
Pool.
Fine. I was very close.
It was very close.
Link in description.
Listen, you want to read something disturbing? Stranger danger, bro.
Yeah, I can't keep looking at this fucking.
It's so upsetting.
That cover is like freaking me the fuck out.
Listen, my wife was like, "You can't put that. It's so disturbing." And I was like, "I know, I like it."
Link in description to all your books and everything, and until we do it again. All right. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace.
All right, guys, thank you for watching this video. If you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button, hit that like button on the video, and here's another episode of the podcast that you might want to check out.